Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Start off this meeting with public comments.
How about some parking?
Like the parking?
It's beautiful.
Yeah. All right, we have no public comments to speak of, so let's move on to
Mr.
agenda.
Chairman.
Sure. Okay. Agenda item number 2, acceptance of minutes. We have minutes from February 3, and I have one comment on those minutes. The section about the acceptance of correspondence should note that one of the items was taken out of the consent agenda. That's one comment I have. Anybody else have any other comments?
Which item was it, do you remember?
Item C, it was talked about right after, liquor license transfer and extending of hours of operation for the,
I thought that was in consent and not correspondence.
Yeah, that's the,
Oh,
I
consent, right.
agree. And it
I'm
has
sorry.
been withdrawn and it's properly reflected in the minutes, because that was in the consent agenda.
no, but it was taken out of the consent agenda and handled separately, handled individually.
Isn't that what it says, though?
Not
Consent
specifically.
agenda, all right. Consent agenda A and B, and then a motion made, and then item C. So all we have to do is somehow identify that item C was actually withdrawn from the
Right,
consent.
because the original posted agenda had A, B, and C because of consent.
You get that, Becky?
Yes.
Any other comments on the minutes? Then I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 3rd, 2015 as amended. We have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion's 4-0. All right. We have the correspondence items, items A through R. I'll make a motion that we accept correspondence items A through R as noted on the agenda for the meeting of February 17th. Do we have a second?
Second.
David got that second. Second goes to Gavin. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes 4-0. All right, next up, we have a rezoning request involving
Mr. Chairman,
29 Acton Street and nearby. Sir?
question on correspondence.
Okay.
Says here we got a notice in the town of Hudson for a hearing on polls.
Yeah.
Where would that location be?
Down by the, down by White Pond. There's no work down there. And technically that's,
On the Hudson side of the line?
correct, yes. And where the butter is.
Because you know, you got Hudson still in the subject.
Yeah, right, yeah, but that's the Hudson side.
Is it on Main Street in Hudson? Do you know?
Is that Main Street? No, it's the road that the fire,
White Pond Road would be the side street.
yeah. I don't think it's the side street, I thought it was the main drag, but I'm not positive about that. But it's not in Maynard, it's just
Are they-
next to Maynard Hill property.
Poles that are in bad condition, or are they?
I do not know, I don't know that.
Thank you.
I like Hudson Power,
You're
so I.
a wealth of information.
trust that.
Thank you.
All right, so back to item number 4, our rezoning request for 129 Acton Street. Kevin, you want to set us up for this?
Sure.
Thank you, Becky.
Okay, the board has for 129 Acton, I'm sorry, for 129 Acton Street, a memo prepared by Bill Nemser, town planner, with regards to an application received by Distinctive Acton Homes. Petition filed from those folks, memo dated February 10th. Request to change the zoning map designation of the property located at 129 Acton Street, map 5, parcel 72, 73, and 95, from industrial and S1, single residence district, to a general residence zoning district. And before the Board of Selectmen this evening, a request to forward the proposal to the planning board for review and consideration.
The letter from Bill Nemser is where?
It's in Dropbox.
Dropbox.
Which one is it? Which one's it
The one that
called?
says Ward to PB?
129 Acton, it's under.
Give me a
It's
thumb.
not the detailed one.
The detailed one provides the proposed site plans.
Although, each time that that proposed site plan came up, I couldn't see any map of proposed site plan. That was always blank. I don't know if anybody else was able to see it.
No, I never saw it.
I could see the schematics of the homes and the schematics of the, you know, the way it looked from the front or whatever, but never was there, the two times we've seen it, the actual diagram of where houses would be. Not, that one I could see, but like, how many, you know, where, how they, or, I think that was provided, but we could never see it. At least I could.
Okay.
Yeah, you have what was sent up from planning board that was received in their application.
Okay, hey, Kevin, one side note to Bill Nemser. His memorandum has the wording that if approved by the planning board, the petition be placed for consideration by the board of selectmen for placement on warrant. Just so he understands that, you know, planning board decides whether it goes to the warrant. But we only approve form. Okay. All right, so we have the proponent here to explain briefly what's going on.
I brought some copies of that concept plan. You said you were-
Okay, yeah, I wasn't able to read. The two times that we've gotten copies of them, I wasn't able to read them.
These are reductions of, that's the ortho, and on the second page is the concept plan.
And if you can help us out by having the team state their name for the record.
Mike Jeanson.
Christine Morgan.
Scott Hayes, Foresight Engineering.
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, comment. I've said this for I don't know how long. When a petitioner comes in and furnishes you with a handout and they don't give it to us, we don't know what the hell you're talking about. And it would be nice to have some consideration for the people in the audience. Thank you.
No, we were getting one.
That works. That's the best angle I'd like to be able to present to everyone, but.
Unless you want to put it up further here.
Yeah, probably to the audience, Scott.
Well, I guess you have paper copies.
Yeah, we've got paper copies, so maybe you can turn it better to them.
So this is a petition of Distinctive Acton Homes for the rezoning of 129 Acton Street. It's actually comprised of 3 parcels of land, or Assessor's Map 5, parcel 72, 73, and 95. Frontage on Brown Street and Acton Street. It's actually the intersection of those two streets, just west of the Maynard Country Club. Marble Farm condominiums are across the street on Acton Street. The State Police Laboratory is here, and their parking lot across the street abuts us to the south. As I said, the site's 3 parcels. It's about 4.2 acres total. We're proposing to develop about 3 of it, but we're proposing to rezone all 3 parcels of general residence. There's this you all probably well know, is a cell tower on the site and an access easement to it. On the south side of the property, there's a cell tower. Here's the access drive. The rest of the site is pretty well disturbed. I'm sure you've all driven by it or familiar, but it's just kind of gravel, fill piles, et cetera, and there are wetlands at the north side of the property up here and running along the sideline of the old railroad right-of-way parcel that kind of run the whole length north-south. So, and that area is fairly wooded and natural, but you know, the bulk of the site, say about 3 acres or so, is all pretty well cleared and vacant and unused, with the exception of the cell tower. So it's zoned currently as industrial land with a portion on the south side of parcel 95, which is currently S1. We're proposing to rezone all 3 tracts in their entirety to general residence to do a multifamily housing project by special permit with the planning board. And I guess I provided you a copy of that. That's this is what we have worked up. So basically, we're proposing to develop the already disturbed and denuded area along Acton Street, and we've got a combination of triplex units, 2 triplexes, and a series of duplexes. Again, this is conceptual. Bit that it works. We've got 2-car garage parking proposed, plus 2 surface spaces per unit. So I'm gonna make sure there's plenty of parking, and we've got an access road that comes up and tees and comes out the other side. So the parcel 95, the old railroad parcel, isn't really proposed to be developed or altered in any way by our preliminary concept. So that's all I have for you. Any questions from your
Questions, Tim, you have any questions?
Can we point out where the easement for the rail trail falls under, if it does?
Well, it's a parcel of land right now, and it's this here highlighted in yellow on the bottom with a long rectangular piece. So there's frontage on the rail trail on Brown Street from here to here, and then the railroad right of way diverges from Brown Street, which turns that way. Identified as parcel B on the plan you have.
I'm good.
Chris, you have any questions?
So it's just above where it says parcel B, between parcel B and that other line?
It's between, basically above the line below, the dark line below parcel B, about an inch down, and
Okay.
there's a bunch of ellipses that denote the stone wall, kind of the westerly boundary of the right of way.
Okay. That's it.
I think it's 66 feet wide, which is a standard railroad.
David, do you have any questions?
The way that this is presented to us tonight, it shows 18 units. That's accurate.
Yes.
What is the likelihood of there being more than 18?
Well, with the proposed design of the units they're working with, there just really is physically any room to do more than that. By general residence calculation, you can do 1 unit for every 7,000 square feet of area that you have for multifamily housing. And it just, for the size and scale of the units that we're proposing in this duplex and triplex form, you'd really have to build, like a garden, like an apartment building, some 3-story building with multiple units to get that kind of density.
Is there any local, not that it really matters to me, but just so that people that might be watching, local developments that would have a similar look to what is proposed here as far as density and everything else?
Well, the Marble Farm or Marble Hill condos are across the street. I think they're a little less.
Those appear less dense based on the...
Yeah. So those units are spaced out.
That'd be pretty close, Scott.
They're pretty close to each other. So this is this ortho is from before it was fully developed, so it's actually missing a number of the buildings.
Okay, all right.
There's just no triplexes over Marble Farms. They're just duplexes.
The spacing is, we've got the buildings are, they meet setback of 25 feet up the street line, 20 feet between the buildings, and 20 feet in front of the buildings for the additional parking in the driveway as well, obstructing the access road. So, they're spaced out well, and there's ample parking for them. You could, if you wanted to do a much more dense multifamily, like 6-unit, and really kind of stack them in there. I mean, it all depends on what you want to do with it. I mean, you could do much. Do you know what the square footage of those units are?
I think they're gonna be like around 18,
Yeah.
18 to 2.
With 2-car attached garages, so they're pretty generous for.
Yeah, my concern is that we not see something much larger at the end of the day.
Well, this is, this will go before planning
I
board
understand.
by special
Yeah,
permit,
yeah,
so, there's plenty of opportunity to.
Now, would this be a condo development? In other words, or would the town be responsible for maintaining those roads?
This would be a condo association.
So there would be no town plowing or whatever?
No.
Nothing else, Bill?
How many bedrooms we talking among the 18 units?
Well, I think primarily they're going to be 2-bedroom units. I think they want the option to maybe have a third of them be 3 bedrooms. So that would be 36 to 40, maybe 40 to 42, something like that.
Now, those 2 bedrooms plus dens, or are they just really 2 bedrooms?
I'm
Yes.
not familiar with the floor plan.
Yes.
Like you are.
2 bedrooms plus den?
Yes.
What are we thinking right now for the key issues in the development agreement for the property?
I'm sorry, you specify, I'm not sure. what
The
you mean.
development agreement for the property, what are we thinking of the key issues? I mean, it just seems like, town meeting takes a 2/3 vote, and if we want to get the 2/3 vote at town meeting, we're gonna have to have some promises locked up in a development agreement prior to town meeting. So, if we're talking, if we're saying it's gonna be 18 units or X bedrooms, we put it in a development agreement, and then it's not a promise at town meeting, it's a fact at town meeting.
I think probably the number of units are.
And included on that, a percentage of those affordable?
No.
No. We like to try to maintain our 10% for, first off, it's important to do.
We were told at last meeting that you've made your 10%.
No, that we've not made the 10%. We've
Oh.
made our requirements in another avenue. But it's also good public policy to always have 10%. So I always support 10% because it's the right thing to do. Affordable housing is the right thing to do. So that's going to be an issue for me personally relative to any development that we bring in. I think should have a component of affordable housing because it's the right thing to do. To hear that there's none planned is somewhat disappointing.
Kevin, does the planning board have this lined up for our schedule?
Yeah, it's scheduled for the 10th, yeah, March 10th.
When do they have to do whatever it is they have to do in order to make the warrant? Or they have to decide March 10th, or do they have to do something?
I believe there was leeway in that schedule to allow for a continuation hearing.
In case it snows?
Yeah, for another week. I know Bill looked at that, given the time of year. But yeah, it is advertised, scheduled for March 10th.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? All right, so the request is, what's the zoning request? Zoning request is
To
industrial S1 to GR, right?
Yeah, the three parcels from industrial and S1 to GR, correct.
Is there a way to reference the properties in the?
By
In
map and
the,
parcel.
yeah, I don't really want to. Is there an easier way to reference the properties in the motion?
Probably the most accurate way to do it. I know them by heart, so.
How about if 129 Acton Street, Assessors Map 5, parcels 72, 73, and 95?
Fine. Yes, sir. Okay, fine. In that case, I'll make a motion in accordance with Master General Law, Chapter 40A, that we submit the proposal for zoning changes on Assessors Map 5, parcels 72, 73, and 95 to the Planning Board for review. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by De Silva. Any further discussion?
Yeah, before we vote, relative to some of these concerns that we've expressed, can you describe the process that would go forward so that the board's ideas and thoughts could be incorporated into the planning board's process?
You asking me? Uh-oh.
Or anyone?
Well, before March 10th, the board will have to discuss and decide what input they want to have.
I'll deliver it to them. That's their liaison, I guess.
So that means at the March
Any questions?
3rd meeting,
Just
we'll
like
have to,
we-
we'll have to
just like
decide
we
what
have-
questions and stuff we as a board have.
Like we have done with other,
Yeah, I mean, we can all show up as individuals, but if we're speaking as a board, we're gonna decide at our next meeting what our questions and concerns are. I mean, mine is a development agreement, but
well,
that's relative.
both of the items that were discussed could be covered presumably in a development agreement, including affordability aspect as well as the verification of the number of bedrooms or the number of units.
Yep, so,
And I would hope both would be addressed in our development agreement.
all right, so topic for March 3rd. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Or nothing? Off the plan?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a public hearing, and let me start by reading the legal notice. Notice is hereby given in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, as amended, that a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 17th, 2015, at 7:15 PM or slightly later, in the Michael J. Gianotis Meeting Room of the Maynard Town Building on the application of transfer of an all-alcohol as a package store license from Tysura Marai LLC to Maynard Spirits LLC, doing business as Marai Liquors at 129 Main Street, Maynard, Mass. All right. I make a motion that we open the public hearing on the license transfer. Do we have a second? We have a second from De Silva. This is a roll.
Second.
This is a roll call. Creel is absent. Gavin?
Aye.
Cranshaw, yay. Yay. Egan?
Aye.
All right, this hearing is open. What do we got, Kevin?
This is the, as you said, the application for transfer of the all alcohol as a package license for Marai LLC to Maynard Spirits LLC. I don't see Angelo. I don't know if Mr. DePietri's going to speak on behalf of him. The board heard and opened the meeting, as you recall, at our prior Board of Selectmen meeting.
This is a new meeting.
This is a new meeting.
Nothing we did at the old meeting has any relevance to anything.
Right.
So we have to do it all over again.
Okay. So yeah, the manager is the, what's your name?
We got the applicant sitting down. Let's start with your introductions for the record. Your names, please.
Hi, Bob DePietri, Capital Group Properties.
Hi, Lachu Kawani.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome back, John.
All right. Now, let's see here. This is a transfer to Maynard Spirits LLC, right?
Correct.
And the ownership of that is, it's not Capital Group, right? It's somebody else?
It's
It's Bob, isn't it?
Maynard Spirits LLC.
Yeah, William DePietri the manager of
Is the
that.
manager, but the
Yeah.
LLC.
Oh, he's the manager. I got you.
Yeah.
Maynard Spirits.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Maynard Spirits LLC, the manager of that is DePietri?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha, not the manager of the store.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So I guess Bob, why don't you introduce the topic and the request?
Okay, thank you. Maynard Spirits is looking to acquire the business at 129 Main Street. We're proposing that Lechu Kawani, sitting to my right, would be the manager of the store. He's 70 years old, tip certified. He has previously owned liquor stores and naturalized U.S. citizen since 1994.
No, 74.
Oh, 74. I can't read Angela's writing.
He said 94, he said 74. The application says 83, but doesn't matter,
Really?
right?
Long time.
Been a while.
Okay. That's it?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Kawani, can you just describe a little bit about your experience with
I've
such
had a
places?
liquor shop before in Norfolk,
Mhm.
Massachusetts. Before that, I had 2, 3 dry cleaners too at the same time, which I sold them all.
Okay.
So right now, I'm kind of retired, you know, so I want to keep myself occupied and busy.
Okay,
That's what keeps me going, you know.
good. All right, anything else you want to add?
Now, sir.
All right. Well, this is simple enough. Let's start with questions from the board. Tim?
I'm all set.
Chris? David?
Mr. Kawani, is that correct, Kawani?
Yes, yes.
How many hours do you expect that you'll actually be spending in the store?
I'll be spending practically 5 nights there.
Okay. So 5 nights, like,
Yeah, days maybe once in a while, but nights I'll always be after 5 o'clock, I'll always be there.
okay. And Mr. DePietri, how many other liquor stores does Maynard Spirits own?
None.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. You expect it to be open the same hours that the current facility is?
Approximately. I mean, there might be some slight changes, but we haven't really discussed it yet.
Okay. That's fine. No questions from me. Kevin, any questions, comments from staff, police, fire, tax collector, anybody?
No issues.
Okay. I'll open up the hearing to the public. Any questions from the public? Mr. Talmo?
Yeah, I trust that the board has cleared up the problem with the street number and so forth.
We did
That
indeed.
this application is, in all respects, done properly.
That is correct.
That's why we're back here
Second
again
time is the
tonight.
charm here.
We're still gonna operate at the same address, is that correct, on Main Street?
We are, yes.
Thank you.
All right, any further comments? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of an all alcohol as a package store license from Thai Sir Marai LLC to Maynard Spirits LLC, doing business as Marai Liquors at 129 Main Street in Maynard, with the manager, Nico Kwani. Do we have a second? We have a second from Gavin. Any further discussion? This doesn't have to be roll call, does it?
No.
All right, all in favor? Passes, 4-0.
Two Form 43s to be signed.
We have 2 Form 43 signed. Let's do that. Thank you, good luck in your
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very
new and
much.
resumed career.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Second time he's retired.
I know, right?
All right,
See you
time
next
being
week.
7:30, I make a motion to close the hearing. Do we have a second? We have a second. Roll call vote on that. Creel absent. Gavin?
Aye.
Cranshaw, yea. Casilla? Egan?
All right.
All right, this hearing is closed. Okay, next up, something about snow. What do you got, Kevin?
So, yeah, Mr. Chair, you have the official notice that's required to be provided to the Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee from the town accountant notifying the boards that the snow and ice account is now running in a deficit. At the time of the date of that notice, we have had several storms since, so we're further in a deficit. So I don't recall what the exact amount is on that form, but it is, again, just notification that the FY15 budget for snow and ice is running in a deficit as of the date of the notice.
Kevin, was that included in Dropbox?
Yeah, I know I've seen it, but where'd it go?
It's in the
Is it
folder.
packet?
Packet, yep.
Yeah,
Packet?
Thank you.
yeah, it's in the packet. You have the original to be signed, right?
You do?
Page 38.
It's the original there?
Did I give it away?
It should be up there, it should have been in the deep folder. Here's
Yeah,
it.
it should be in one of the folders.
Oh, thank you. So this is a notification to both Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen with a request to run a deficit in the snow and ice account for the remainder of fiscal year 2015.
Correct.
As of January 31st, many snows ago, we were short by
90 feet.
6,000.
90 inches ago.
I think we're probably short by 10 times that by now, maybe? More than that?
About 325,000.
Ah. Okay,
So
then.
year-to-date spending is about 443,000. Take out the budget, it's about 300, a little over 325,000 as of now, which does not include operations from today and some others, but that number's pretty accurate with regards to overtime and contracts, salt procurement, et cetera. We still have not received, again, from today's snow operations, as well as the clearing of some roofs work that was done, as you saw when we were at the library on Saturday. Some of that work hasn't been accounted for either.
$2,600 back. So, saw that.
Just curious, and you've probably told us this 100 times over the course of time, but how do we set that line item? Is it based on 5-year history? And if that's the case, and is it 5-year history of expenditures, or do we just throw out a number and hope that it works?
Yeah.
'Cause if it's 5 years of expenditure, the next year and going forward.
Yeah, it's not at all. It's actually a very, very conservative number as far as, problem is, once you raise your snow and ice number, you're held to that number forever.
Okay.
So if we, by increasing that number, which I did in FY15 over 14, slightly, but it's still very modest. Yeah, but the problem is that, once you do, communities for the most part in Massachusetts either level fund it or very minimally increase it. And if they increase it, they typically only increase it by the increase in contractual salary increases to account for it, because we would be left to budgeting that increase moving forward.
So I don't remember from Saturday, or if it was even mentioned, but the line item for next year would be the same as it is for this year, presumably.
Yeah, and I did increase it in 15 over 14.
Yeah, okay.
Again, to account for that.
Okay, thank you.
I remember when it was in the 40s.
Yeah,
Much
it went up
higher than
to,
it used to be.
I think it was at 80,000 in 13,
That's what it would
14.
cost to plow my driveway.
Yeah. That's not even enough for one storm.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll make a motion to approve the request to run a deficit in the snow and ice account in fiscal year 2015. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Gavin. Any further discussion?
Is that only through that date?
No, this motion applies for the remainder of fiscal 2015. So what could be 300 now could be 3 million. Snowed another 80 feet.
Was that? Okay. Is that, I mean, I'm just asking because that's site-specific numbers.
I think that's just to notify us that we have exceeded the allocated budget and that here's the number now.
Right, that was the trigger. You can't make the request till it's needed, and then he's like, it's needed. Since then, it's needed a lot. But us and 351 other communities are doing this. So.
In the state.
And the state. And a few counties and airport authorities and everybody else. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Grudgingly so, or nothing. All right, so next item up is annual town meeting and special town meeting warrant articles, and I think we have a couple that might be ready to go.
Yes. We have two proposed warrant articles before you this evening, as well as a draft of the timeline of potential articles that we're anticipating. That we don't have articles for yet, but just so the board can be aware of future articles. The first one we have is the Finance Committee Reserve Fund article, which is an annual article that set, and again, the proposed, as you remember from Saturday, the proposed amount for that is the same as it has been in prior fiscal years at $300,000. And that's listed as control number G. F. Is that F? Yeah.
Our draft says G.
Yeah.
G for Finance Committee Reserve.
Is it?
Yeah, that's what it has on the,
All right.
yeah.
I'm sure we'll find an F soon though.
Yeah.
That article's actually, we're the sponsor of that article typically, right? Not FinCom?
FinCom.
Yeah.
FinCom
Finance
sponsors their own,
Committee's
give them
one.
their own money? I thought the board always did it because FinCom didn't want to dirty their hands.
FinCom.
So this is an article provided by FinCom. They voted on it and sent it over to us. So we have nothing to do except say, looks cool, and send it to the warrant, right?
Accept it and put it on, yeah.
Okay. All right, so this isn't ours. So I'll make a motion that we accept the article on the Finance Committee Reserve Fund shown as Control G for the annual town meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor? That article is off the warrant. And the next one?
Next one is another one that is sponsored by, not by the Board of Selectmen, but the Board of Assessors. It's the optional additional exemption, annual authorization for the elderly surviving spouse, minors of deceased fathers, veterans surviving, 100% allowable personal exemption amount in accordance with MGL 59 for fiscal year 16. Again, this was approved by the Board of Assessors and sent over.
Is this for the special or the annual? Annual, right?
This one's annual, yeah.
In that case, I'll make a motion that we accept the article optional additional exemption as shown in Control E for the annual town meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion on accepting the article? All in favor? All right. Another one for the warrant.
Okay. There's two.
Where's the article schedule? Oh, there it is. It's a standalone.
Yeah, it's a standalone.
So we got the budget, we got free cash. What's the community preservation fund transfer? That's us? What are we doing?
Yeah, there's always two CPC.
There's one to allocate and one to spend, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's always two CPC articles.
And when will we know what to do on that one? I assume CPC has to do some stuff
Yeah.
first.
Mike Guzzo, the town accountant, is working with them. He has some numbers on one, but I don't think they have set.
Final votes tomorrow, so
Okay.
then we'll know.
Oh, okay, so that's timely. All right. And the reserve for overlay release. Do we have that number yet
No,
from BOA?
no,
Do we know when they're acting on it?
I don't. I'll find out.
Okay.
We didn't get that till March last year.
They just scheduled their meeting today, they're posting it up.
Okay.
I have to look it up, but it's, they posted their meeting today for that decision will be forthcoming.
Okay.
Yeah, it was sometime in March. We got it last year.
I seem to recall, actually, they released a fair amount of money last time, so
They
I'm
did.
not expecting a whole lot this time.
Correct.
Yeah, they did. They released a lot last year.
They released a lot the year before. Last year was still
2 years ago
fairly
there was?
sizable, but
Was it? All right.
we actually cleaned up pretty much our entire snow and ice deficit with the one they released in 13.
Oh.
Last year's was okay, but 13 was a big release.
Yeah, I don't think they're covering it this year.
224, and the warrant article is on their agenda.
Good. February 24th. It's in
Oh.
that Board of Assessors.
Okay. So we might have it at next meeting. Excellent. Any other questions from the board regarding the,
You had me
Articles?
confused because you said BOA and I thought you said COA, and I'm like, wait a minute, Council on Aging is doing a, and then I figured out where we were going.
they're really active now.
Yes.
All right. So let's move on to agenda item number 8, which is talk about the water and sewer enterprise funds and capital plan, because we got several articles that we'll have to do, and I'm hoping that we can get all of our detailed picky questions out of the way tonight, so that if we're really lucky and have no follow-up questions, we can get those articles ready for next time. But worst case, the time after that. So, Kevin, I don't know, you guys put together a bunch of stuff, you want to walk us through it?
With regards to the budget itself,
Well, I mean, yeah, let's go through both budgets and then the capital plan. I mean, treat them like the articles. I mean, you must have a preliminary recommendation on what the articles are going to be looking like. Right? And let's see where the numbers came from and see if we have any questions on them.
sure. Okay. You have the, in the enterprise fund folder, the proposed water, sewer, wastewater budget. With regards to, if we look at the water budget first, the recommendation is accounted for with, it accounts for the CBA agreement that the water sewer department folks are covered under, that we approved this fiscal year, and it provides those increases accordingly, as well as this year, the budget actually has the full salary amounts for the sewer staff personnel, which was not accounted for in the prior year. That's why you'll see the biggest changes. Specifically, there's some additional amounts that have been set aside in the water budget in some areas that have been identified as needing some additional funding, some slight increases in some areas related to buildings and grounds, and
Hey, Kevin, just so I make sure I'm on the right place, your,
look at that.
your salary number is 213 for water? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yep. Which is a decrease in over. It's a increase representative of the budget from 15 of about 15,000 or so, I think it was.
Actually, it looks like a slight decrease in budget, but a big increase compared to actual.
Yeah.
And we had a little trouble, I don't know, matching up the right people and the right line item, I guess, huh?
Yeah. We're working on looking at some of the actuals. I think throughout the entire enterprise fund budgets, looks like there's some that were actually posted inaccurately, and Mike and I are going back through those to with Chris to find out what happened there. There's some others that you'll notice that too.
So
The actuals at this time of year just don't make sense.
that line item with the actual at 78,026, you think something's wrong with that? Or the one, I'm confused on what you're saying. The third line down from the top, I think it's a water, I can't see, because the spreadsheet's too big, I can't see what it says, but I think it says water salary.
Yeah, that one's
I think
probably accurate.
that's accurate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's accurate with where
Because
we
it's
are.
approximately
to date.
half
Yeah, it's a
of
little over half, and that
the
was
allocated
as
amount.
of mid-February. But specifically, I don't know exactly, there are a couple that I've noticed in the enterprise funds, though, that, not necessarily specific to salaries, but other areas that it got charged that it should be a higher number or a lower number. It's probably whether it was posted to sewer and it should have been posted to water, or vice versa.
We'll have that cleared up.
Yes. The big reduction that you can see is the water utilities electric reduction of about almost 30%, or $50,000. That's the Rockland Ave electric savings related to the solar array project.
How does the money get moved for that? So that electric bill is just paid out of a different account?
Yeah, it has its own electric bill that's charged against this account number.
Yep.
And the way it works is that on the N-Star bill, the credits are posted directly to those individual accounts that have been identified. And this is one of the 5. So solely the Rockland Ave bill is the biggest of all of them. And that's where the credits are seen. So it's running roughly, it receives 40% of the Schedule Z, and it's been running a little around 50,000, which is in good shape. So that's where that reduction was made. Some other areas I had bumped up slightly from what the department request was, and met with Chris with regards to that, and that was primarily because of prior year expenditures. There's some areas where the enterprise funds have been shorted in some areas, and we've run into some potential issues where fortunately there's been enough in other line items that have been able to keep that budget balance, but areas that haven't been identified in prior year expenditures that were considerably larger out of the norm have been adjusted slightly to account for that.
The big one there is 15 grand for buildings and grounds?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. That's one that prior years have been up there. Again, that's some of that is where they post things too.
Yeah.
But we've looked at the histories, and that's where it makes sense.
What's the phone bill go up $5,000?
Where do you have
Yeah,
buildings and grounds?
Again, that's part of where things were posted inaccurately.
Yeah.
Some of this is
looking at
cleaning
different
up
accounting, yeah.
prior year messes that have been.
Oh, there it is, okay.
So, maybe it's subtotal somewhere, but what's the difference in bond payment for the water system? For fiscal 16 versus 15?
It went down to 118,000, I think.
I'm trying to figure out where I can see that.
Is that where the change? That might be, that's probably gonna show total.
496.
I don't have the schedule, without adding it up.
But
You can see though that, I mean, that's gonna show you overall expenses.
Yep.
But if you itemized it out, there's some that are fairly big, changes.
So I got a total water of 1.269 mil. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Some of that increase is associated with the water tank project that we did, the borrowing for 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Regards to treating the tanks. And then on the sewer side, you'll see the same, which includes the Mockingbird Lane, the pump station.
Okay. And that's actually a decrease over last year's budget.
Correct.
Was that money savings for the ratepayers, or did that just get shifted over to sewer or something?
Sewer has
To
some
fix the
high,
accounts.
sewer has some higher areas. We don't know what the rates are looking at like yet. Toby Fetter is going to be meeting with us next week to look at that. We provide him, he doesn't do any numbers until we submit the budget to him. So the rate is, he doesn't get involved too much into what the budget itself looks like. He sets the rate based on what the budget we give him and then determines the rates and the indirect costs.
How much water
associated.
revenue did we get last year?
I don't know off the top of my head.
More than 1.269 mil?
Yeah. Yeah, whatever the retained earnings. We did okay.
All right, yeah, I mean, my basic check is whether,
Yeah.
revenue still
The
exceeds.
revenue's still
budgeted expenses.
consistent. It's in good shape.
But you're saying we won't have his analysis till when?
We're meeting with him next week. He never presents it to the board for the rate stuff until the first meeting in April.
Yeah, but we gotta set the warrant before then.
Yeah. Yeah, historically, we've always done the budget prior to setting the rate. The budget goes in as it is, and then he sets the rate based on the budget that's approved.
Yeah, I guess I just need some revenue history to be comfortable then.
Sure. That's easy.
All right. Anybody got any questions on the water operating budget? Any further questions? Move on to the sewer operating budget?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin, one other thing. Is this, the 1.269, does that include the transfers?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
Yes. Yeah, that bottom number does.
okay.
On the sewer end, again, similar areas that have been adjusted accordingly. You can see the increase on that end with regards to the salaries reflective of changes within CBAs and some cost areas. Reflects about a 17,000 increase over that. There's been some areas that in the sewer budget that have been accounted for with regards to R&M, repair and maintenance issues that we've had, but certainly the budget as a whole, I don't feel is adequate to deal with some of the maintenance and capital needs, but it's going to take a progression to get there. We probably haven't been adequately funding certainly on the sewer side, the budget well enough for ongoing maintenance issues and some capital repairs within the operating budget itself. All of the capital rather actually has been done via appropriating from retained earnings for specific projects. But this year in particular, we've had a fairly sizable amount of sewer breaks. So we've had some areas where we've had to have emergency repair, and overtime budgets have been hit hard. We've increased it slightly in some areas that we think will hold okay as far as continuing our rates where they are, but again, it's just something the board to consider moving forward. We're going to have some higher increased costs associated definitely with the sewer system and some aging infrastructure and pipes related to that.
But in this operating budget, is some of the routine maintenance in here? Not the capital repairs, but,
Yeah, there's
I
some.
don't know, whatever we do, clean out storm drains
Yeah.
or whatever we do.
Exactly.
That's in here?
That's in there. And you'll see there's one that's listed as emergency hire. Somewhere. A lot of it comes out of that. Education.
Isn't it at the top, that one?
Yeah. That one's been included within the salary. But the overall budget change is, for the sewer budget is less than 1%, and is an increase of just over 10,000 for the total department budget.
Yes.
You can see some areas, again, with the sewer budget that came in, the department request that the TA recommended is different. Some areas that I felt were too high, and other areas that I felt, given the history, wasn't adequately funded. So I've been adjusted slightly to address that. And again, that all resulted in less than a 1% change. And we've also seen some of the principal and interest payments on bonds start to roll off there.
Yeah, $6,000, woo-hoo.
Yeah. Not a lot.
So the budget is 1.097. I forget, is the treatment plant and the sewer in the same enterprise
No,
fund?
it's its own department. That's
Its own, huh?
443.
Okay,
Yeah. That's the next budget.
all right. Any questions from the board on sewer budget? Okay, wastewater plant, yay.
Wastewater budget accounts for some fixed costs that are associated with the Veolia Water Group privatization that had some fixed contractual increases.
Kevin, is there a tab for us under the, I'm just trying to find this particular budget page in Dropbox for,
Page 9.
It should be, it's right after the sewer budget.
I see sewer,
Should continue right after that. It's 443. You'll see it wastewater/sewer.
Yeah, I'm reading the phase 2 file, not the
Okay, that's what it's
individual
under?
one. I'm doing
Yeah,
phase
it's
2
easy
and
to-
down,
okay, that's,
down to
It's easier
page
to
9 on
follow.
phase 2.
that's what I need, okay.
It's easier to follow on the PDF. That's
Oh, okay,
That's directly out of,
I wish I had known that at the start.
sorry. Yeah, that's directly out of the
All
software
right,
system.
great, all right.
I would recommend not looking at Excel on
The other two I
iPads.
was looking at and I was like, couldn't see it,
Yeah,
one was going
yeah.
over, okay.
This should be easier to follow. So if you go right to page 9,
9,
that's the department budget of 443,
all right,
which is
gotcha.
the wastewater treatment plant. Again, that it shows, for the rest of the board that isn't aware, we recently, now going on our second year, full privatization of the wastewater treatment plant. Prior to that, you'll see why there was a budget in 14 for salaries. Those no longer exist. They've been removed and all added into contractual services. because those no longer town employees that serve as wastewater treatment plant operators. So that's why you'll see in FY16 requests, those are all zeroed out, but they still carry forward from the prior fiscal year budgets. There's been a little uptick in electric usage there, some other areas. The professional consulting services, you can see, has been increased about 3.75%, about $30,000. That's some of that built in. The other big area of increase by $5,000 is the engineering architect. That line item pays for engineering services that are related to the wastewater treatment plant. It also has some, there's a few contractors that are paid within that. That's not a Veolia line item. There's the SCADA system, which is, I don't want to get too much into that in one, because I'll be speaking beyond my knowledge, but the SCADA system is one area.
Right, Jason's not here.
Yeah, that we pay actually Woodard and Curran a contractual fee that operate the, when they did the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, there was a lot of technology upgrades that went along with that. So some of that engineering fees are accounted for within, that are outside of the professional consulting services. They're specific to engineering services. So there was a little bit of an increase in that when we went to the full, because Veolia operates the plant, as you know, but there's proprietary information and stuff, so there's a little bit of slight increases in some of the costs as we've pulled away from one entity to another. And that's pretty basic. Like I said, the majority of these you'll see in the FY14 budget were funded line items, and when we moved into FY15 budget and now 16, they're all pretty much zeroed out, because a lot of those expenses that were associated with chemicals and treatment and all of those are all included within our contractual agreement with Veolia. So all of those, what used to be individual line items in the budget, are now included in that $830,000 professional consulting services. So the overall increase, proposed increase, is $43,000, a little over 4%, related to that.
All right. So I got, what do I got, the wastewater treatment plant budgeted?
A little over 1.4.
104.7, I don't quite know where that
Yeah.
interest on short-term debt goes.
Yeah, with that.
And bottom line is that water budget goes down, sewer budget goes up, but water budget goes down more than sewer goes up. So between the two, it's a slight decrease, right?
Yeah, overall.
Compared to prior year budget. That's pretty good news.
It's in pretty good shape, considering. Again, I mean, I do foresee, and I don't know, and we definitely have a lot of capital projects that need to get done, and as Andrew, we talked about, you know, in prior year, we provided the enterprise fund capital issues, but, you know, again, we're looking at doing phased out of cleaning out lines and trying to progress in a lot of that maintenance stuff that we're dealing with, so we can get ahead of the sewer breaks and some of the main issues we've had.
All right. So before we dive deep into the capital stuff, any last questions from the board on operating budget, whether it be water, sewer, wastewater treatment plant?
Capital stuff.
All right, so capital thoughts. I don't suppose there's a nice, easy PDF for us to look at, huh?
No.
Okay.
I don't think there's a PDF in there, no.
All right, so walk us through capital. We got 2 articles for capital, is that what it normally is?
Yeah, we typically do an article out of, we typically do, well, there's 2, you're talking about in the enterprise funds, there's a water capital article and there's a sewer capital article, yeah.
Okay.
And then there's usually.
More often than not out of retained earnings.
Retained earnings. Last year, we took it out of stabilization to simplify it, and then we put the retained earnings into stabilization. It's kind of like in one way, out the other. But yeah, the simplest way is to appropriate it out of the certified retained earnings, or,
If I look at your little thing
Yeah.
from Saturday, will I find the
Yes.
balances of it?
yeah. It's the available funds under revenue. It's,
It'll be up front?
page numbers will be on it next year.
We don't believe in
Go-
page numbers.
If you go under the revenue section, it is,
Oh, here we go.
it's labeled available funds at the top, looks like this.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Do we have anything that shows history of retained earnings or things like that? I don't even know if they've been going up or...
Yeah, we have the history.
Or anything like that.
I can send that out too. I'll send that out with the revenue history.
So we have a water enterprise stabilization, a sewer enterprise stabilization.
Correct.
And where's retained earnings show up, or is that?
It's down the bottom, it's listed as free cash.
Oh, gotcha, I gotcha.
But it's the same.
I
See
gotcha.
the balance, 431, 731 in water, and 469, 945 in sewer that are available for this year. And the stabilizations are in decent shape too.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts on spending it?
You know, lead that discussion.
So, the capital plan for water and sewer was broken out from the combined plan that you saw presented last Tuesday night. The FY16 need from water and sewer, request from water and sewer is $860,000.
How much for each? And where do we see that?
It's combined because the equipment that they use is mostly interchangeable. It's one water department, but they'll do sewer cleanouts. So
Right, but for the article, we gotta split it.
It's usually 60/40.
Sewer, water?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a similar to how I mean, you see that in the breakdown with salaries. It's similar because they're the same people. We do a 60/40 split, and if it's shared equipment, we'll typically take 60% and 40%. Even when it came to a lot of the borrowing, it's the same way.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, in the stuff I put in the Dropbox over the weekend, I suggested that we use the stabilization fund at a rate of 50% of the current stabilization funds to fund about 2/3 of the request. And we don't know what the retained earnings, or we don't know what we'll do with current retained earnings in terms of further funding the stabilization funds. But the impression from past history is that when we have retained earnings, we will put some of it into stabilization. So essentially, you can consider all that money one big pot. And if that were the case, it is almost twice the size that I show on the spreadsheet, because the free cash, as Kevin just outlined, is about $900,000.
So walk us through the items that you're recommending go
So-
on the article.
On the details, well, I guess to finish that point, given the size of the retained earnings, an argument could be made to fully fund it at the $860,000 level. It won't wipe out the stabilization funds nor the free cash or the retained earnings. It would use a substantial portion of the combined total, roughly 50% of it. The specifics that we're asking for this year include equipment like an F-350, sewer lift station cleaning, hydrant replacements.
Can you go through it as it is on the spreadsheet that we have in Dropbox?
The first line is drainage improvements of $100,000.
Okay.
You looking at the summary, or are you looking at the detailed page?
Detail.
Yeah, whatever you want us to look at.
The next line item is the F-350 truck.
Drainage improvement, that's all sewer?
I'd have to defer to the folks from the DPW about the specifics of it. I would believe that that is mostly sewer.
Yeah.
An example of what if-
The water is coming in, not going out, so the drainage would be going out.
Yeah, so what's an example of a drainage improvement?
I'm gonna have to defer those specifics to Chris.
Okay.
The figures came from the I&I study that was conducted. So if they're specifying that sewer on some street in town be done, they've specified that similar to the pavement improvement plan where they're dividing up the town and saying these are the most critical ones. The I&I plan was done more I believe it's in 1/3 of the town at a time. But within that 1/3, they're saying, these are the ones you really need to do right away. So that's what's on the page. And then, I don't know how far $100,000 would go, but it does not cover all the costs of doing that work. Again, similar to what we discussed on last Tuesday and on Saturday, that, you write a blank check, we got lots and lots of work to do. This is our best, this is our idea of how much we can afford to accomplish, given the other resources we have besides money.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
A quick question, Andrew, if I may. The FY15 budget on this spreadsheet shows $60,000. It's in green. And I'm wondering if you know specifically what that $60,000 may have gone for. It might give some insight into what the $100,000 goes for, that type of thing, and why it's in green.
The green was an indication that we had verified the number.
Okay.
So that was an internal thing we were
Okay.
using on certain parts of the spreadsheet. And it just never got changed back to black, but it was really just a placeholder
All
for
right.
people like me looking at it. I believe that the 60,000 on those were included the Main Street water main break up the street here a little ways.
Yep.
So these are the costs to repair that. That was not on the schedule, but it was money that the town spent to repair that.
Okay.
As opposed to what we hope to do in the future, which is sort of schedule these things before they break.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
The I&I work continues. After the truck that's on the list, then there's the I&I work, which looks at the sewers, tells us what drainage improvements need to be made, and then puts them out in sort of an order of operations. So we expect these costs to continue to rise as more of that work gets done, as more of the stuff gets specifically identified, as opposed to us just acknowledging that our infrastructure is aging and likely needs work. It's going to say that this one in particular needs to be done.
Is that I&I a state mandate, or is it just something
Yeah.
we're doing to save ourselves money?
It's mandated.
I&I is
The
acronym
the
for.
MS4 permitting is a mandate.
Yeah, it's a mandate of our DEP license though for the wastewater treatment plant.
What's I&I stand for?
Inflow and infiltration.
I know we've been told that before.
Yeah.
I can't remember it either.
Yeah.
There's many.
All that
folk-
melting snow that's sneaking into the sewer system.
There's many. There's just as many people that are on one side of it that it's a sort of an unfunded mandate requirement that really isn't going to do a whole lot for Maynard based on the structures we have and the layout of how Maynard is compared to other communities that might have more of a inflow areas based on buildings and things like that, their roof lines and. But yeah, it is at the same time it is a requirement on our DEP permit. It's a big cost.
One of the things that the capital group worked on was, there's a request on there, it says Aquatech vacuum trucks, the third line down. DPW originally wanted to invest in one of those immediately. It does a lot of the work that the drainage improvement money will do in creating compliances from what the I&I is recommending, creating repairs and so on. It's really a maintenance tool though. And in having these discussions with the capital group, DPW acknowledged that it would be better to fix the major problems of the cleanout and then invest in that tool to maintain it long term. If we were to invest in that truck today, we'd have to dedicate 2 of Chris's staff to using it to keep up with the workload that we intend to hire instead. That's going to reduce his ability to do other work in town. Once the work's caught up, 3 years or so out, the investment in the truck and the dedication of the staff time would be far less. And the cost of the truck would then, we'd have an ROI of maybe 8 or 10 years, but then we wouldn't be spending this money sort of hand over fist in the short term.
So that contracting for that work is already built into the operating budget?
No.
No.
Is that a problem?
Contracting for the work
Yeah.
is, I believe it's part of this $100,000.
Emergency work, some emergency work is built into the budget, but not enough of actual maintenance is within that.
Oh, I thought that was the point of his discussion.
And there is a little bit, but not to the extent that we need to be, because there's such a backlog of maintenance issues, particularly with those drainage lines, that the budget, it definitely isn't in there. We would have to allocate it as a capital type of thing, over a phased approach, targeting areas. What we've done lately is isolating and targeting areas that we've had the breakages and pinpointing those with GIS, et cetera, to be able to follow that and prioritize the cleaning. But there's not enough of a maintenance in the operating budget. One area that we're pushing forward with is looking at other sources of funds, particularly through our insurance company with Maya. They may have some community grant money to be able to do that. They have allocated funds for larger communities that are part of Maya. But if every time there's a break and there's a claim, there's a significant cost to our insurance company for cleanup.
Oh, yeah.
So there's incentives there, beyond our deductible. It's costing. This year we've had a lot of claims, so it would be worthwhile for them to proactively try to address the lines.
I guess it would be within our economic development goal not to have claims.
Yeah, ideally.
Businesses don't like that.
We also don't have.
Especially these types where claim is a sewage backup into your home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But, so,
that was unpleasant.
I'm still a little confused. This vacuum truck work, you saying that's within the $100,000 in drainage number?
Chris actually wanted to do $500,000 in 1 year, and we just know that isn't realistic in a couple of ways, and one of them is the scope of the work. It makes more sense to address it in a multi-year fashion, just because of all the other things that Chris has to worry about. But my point in mentioning the vacuum truck was that we weren't just throwing numbers on the page indiscriminately, but looking at how best to stage the work and the other resources we have in town, like staffing. Because Chris was also coming in saying, I need more staff, and pretty much every department in town can say that. So sometimes it pays to hire the contractor, because...
I'm still not seeing where the contractor's being paid from. You say it's being paid from the $100,000 in drainage or somewhere else, or we haven't figured that out yet?
You know what, I honestly would need to just go back and talk to Chris about how much of this he has in his operating budget versus what's on that first line. But we broke up that first line from a $500,000 number and spread it out.
Yeah, I think it's the drainage repairs figure.
Okay, well, all right, so let's not get stuck. Let's keep going. I 85.
I'm looking in my notes here, Chairman, and it also says to be done in conjunction with roads. Of course, every time we dig up the roads and then do the sewer drain work, they do some repaving, things like that. So some of that he may be billing off of his road budget, off of, say, some of the Chapter 90 funds. That's the part where I'd like to clarify with him. I'm not sure exactly how he divided it up.
Okay. Your next line is sewer lift stations cleaning. That seems like that belongs in the operating budget, right? Rather than the capital.
I believe that he is subcontracting that, and that may be why it's considered capital. they'll hire somebody for $15,000 to do a certain amount of work.
Still doesn't make it capital.
Yeah.
Professional services is not capital.
Yeah. I don't know how often it's done. Could be if it's every 5 years, but if it's an.
Yeah, but it's budgeted
It's in the
for
budget
every year.
annually.
Yeah, I don't know, I just,
No, that's a.
by the time we finish, if we can clean it up, let's clean it up and
No,
get it where it
that-
should be.
You're absolutely right. If that's an operational cost, we're gonna move it out. Hydrant replacement, this is also part of that. Again, I don't remember if this is from Beta or from the other analysis work that Chris had done. But similar to how the roads and sidewalks were prioritized, the hydrant replacements were prioritized. And he's requesting $25,000 a year, pretty much indefinitely, until we catch up with the aging infrastructure there. I believe we're looking at 400 hydrants townwide. And,
Really?
this is going to be a many-year program, multi-year program. The MS4 permitting is the one that we talked about last week, where the regulations are expected to change, and some of those changes are expected to cost far more money. We don't know what that's going to be, but there is a strong recommendation to get the MS4 permitting done. It's an annual requirement, so if the costs go up in the future, we're still going to have to pay them. But as the regulations aren't yet set, we don't know what our long-term costs are going to be. So that's something we wanted to specifically fund it as soon as possible, and sort of have a baseline of information that's before the regulations change.
Similar to Bill's question on the other one, is that an operational expense or is that a capital expense for permitting?
I can't answer that because I don't even know what it is.
Kind of a one-time outlay.
It's a one-time outlay, but, there's an annual MS4 reporting requirement, which we've been paying out of some engineering service. I think it's been
Yeah,
coming out
right.
of water.
I don't know. Well, that's another thing for you to look at. Just
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to make sure that they're in the budget documents that Kevin's working with, so that we're not sort of double budgeting for them.
Yes.
Or not budgeting.
Or, yeah, more important.
Right, if they should be on that side of the equation, but,
Yeah, okay.
I'm not sure that the DPW administration sees this the same way that you're asking these questions. And I'm not familiar enough with the details of water and sewer management
Fair enough.
to even
Yep.
pick up on that. The valves, gates, and water mains, it's too bad Jason's not here tonight, because I know he would know exactly what this stuff is, but some of these things, the parts themselves are thousands of dollars. And these are the things that when the guys try to, they call it exercising them. Like, one of the things that we're supposed to be doing on a maintenance level is exercising our valves, so that when we have a problem, we can, shut off water in certain parts of town quickly. If you don't exercise your valves, when you go to shut them off, you often break the valve. And so this is replacing the valves and so on that need to be done. But it's being done in conjunction with this knowledge that we need to do more of this kind of maintenance work, like exercising the valves. I believe that was part of the problem over on Main Street.
I remember a story about just this thing where they went to turn off a valve, and because of its age, more so than the fact, and it probably hadn't been exercised, as you've said, it snapped. Then they have to go down to the next, wherever the next one
Precisely.
may be. And if I remember correctly, this particular time, that one broke, so they had to go to the next one.
That
And it
was
just
that
caused-
Summer Street?
Meanwhile, we're losing water, and
I think that was the Summer Street break up by you.
Oh, yeah.
it was a while ago.
It took a while. They didn't like that. Yeah.
So-
Well, that's good. Make sure you have enough money in that budget line.
Especially on Summer Street.
Right. District 1.
The exercising process itself is part of this sort of resource allocation, because that requires staffing. And so if we don't have enough staff to keep up with that today, and we're putting money into new valves, it's sort of good money after bad, and we want to make sure that we don't we don't ask our staff to do more than they're capable of doing, not so much in a skill set, but in the number of hours in a day. The water treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant has, as you know, it's being privately managed. But the manager has told us that the fire alarm system is not compliant and needs to be replaced. We only got this information, I think, in December. So that placeholder number is an estimate. I believe it was provided to us by Wayne Amico. And the DPW is in the process of getting a more specific cost, but it is not something they're going to wait on. They're gonna, as soon as they can determine the details, get it spec, get it bid, they will get that done.
The governor gave us a bad fire alarm system?
Yeah, they
Jeez.
signed off on it and shouldn't have. That was with
Then change the rules the next week, probably?
Brown and Caldwell was the
Huh.
yeah, O&M for the job, and they got signed off on and blessed, and then we were hit with this, and we were hit with a $25,000 railing that should have been put in. This was all after the fact, not only after the fact, but several years after the fact, with DEP compliance inspection.
Oh, well, life safety
And the
stuff
governor
goes
even
first.
personally inspected that.
That's right, he did.
He did.
He didn't get hurt, did he?
It was pouring rain that day. He
That's
wanted to-
right, that might have been why he missed it.
Get out of there.
Get out of the SUV.
Yeah, he did, but he wasn't happy.
All right.
The steel building, I beg your pardon on this one, I was under the impression this was a warrant article last year.
It was proposed, but never put forward.
Okay, so then it is on the list appropriately.
Is it worth being a standalone? Is it gonna be an issue? Or do you want it lumped in with all the others?
I don't think it'd be an issue. It was proposed steel building to locate over at Rockland Ave. The current building that's at the garage down Winter Street is not adequate. It doesn't meet the needs of today, and it's in tough condition. That's another conversation as far as the building itself, but for fairly short money, they've been looking at this for 2 years now. And a lot of what they do is up and over there, so it makes sense to house equipment and things of that nature over
As
there.
opposed to Winter Street.
Yeah, as opposed to Winter Street, and also to get other stuff out of the elements that are being improperly stored, if you will, behind the building because they just don't have the room.
But you're not proposing at this time to demolish Winter Street?
Yeah, I think that has to be a conversation. I did recently get an engineering review of the building, which it's in very tough shape. It just,
Got to be careful with that, because there could be some environmental issues
I know.
that are
That's why I
associated.
wasn't broaching it.
All
Yeah.
right.
Be nice to demolish and cover over, but I don't know. I'm not looking to.
Do you think maybe
Open
that's a
up a-
fall town meeting discussion?
Probably a fall. We gotta spend a
meeting
little more
discussion.
time.
Get the garage built first, then decide what to do with the old one.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah, don't knock down the first one.
yeah.
Fill the other ones up.
The mechanical systems on the sewer pump houses, so there's 11 of these in town, and we've replaced, I'm sorry, there's 13 of them in town. I believe we've done 3 of them. And either 1 or 2 of them were done this year for the $55,000 figure you see on the page. What DPW is recommending is that we do attempt to do 1 a year, and maybe some instances where we need to do 2 in a year, but to just pick off the ones in worse shape annually, and after about 8 or 10 more years, we're going to have them all done. And I believe the useful life on them is probably closer to 20 to 25 years. So it won't be sort of a permanent cost, but it will be a repetitive thing in the capital plan over time. We may be able to skip a couple years along the way, but there's 2 or 3 more that need to get done in the next 2 or 3 years. On the last section, the filters, these need to be done, I believe it's biannually. Some of it depends on the filter and its location. So this year, there were some that cost $300,000 that were done. Next year, they're asking for $150,000 for a different set. So we're going to see these numbers coming up annually or biannually, depending on which filter we're talking about.
We do one location a year, right?
Yeah.
I believe that's the case.
Okay.
And then the water tanks up on Tower Road, they would like to fence them in properly. So they see this as a big security issue that people with bad intentions could do some damage up there. They'd like to fence it in.
Those people on Wilson Drive, they're troublemakers. Wilson
Perhaps.
Circle.
But it's not where they live, it's the access to the water tower that's pretty much open. If you wanted to get to them, you could. We're already exploring putting in camera systems, and would have feedback right into our dispatch center for that if something was spotted, but sometimes that's even too late.
I think you could crowdsource the cameras, you know, Vic and I, and we could spend all night just staring at it, waiting for something to happen. Be good.
You know, and we do have a cell tower up there. Perhaps we could get a camera up there that just sort of looks at the entire property. And it's going to pick up deer and raccoon and other things as well. So, but in any case, that's a significant security problem if the community's water were to be compromised in some way.
That's another area that we're gonna look at, potential grants for.
It
There's
seems
some,
like there could be some type of
yeah,
homeland
there-
security grant.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's call Bob.
Yeah.
Instead of a pilot, we'll get some cameras.
Yeah.
So those are the major items on there, and all these things is,
So the cameras is part of that same thing?
there's 50,000 for cameras on the bottom line, but it's all sort of,
A lot of cameras.
it's two different.
That's a lot of camera.
Right, well, again, this is one of those things where we haven't really spec'd out what is required. Chris got information from other communities that said, oh, we spent this on surveillance equipment. It may be very different for us, but if you've been up there, it's quite a large expanse. We can't just put a camera on the front door and expect to be covered.
We had
We
some
didn't
borrowed.
get that as
equipment up
part
there.
of our agreement with the cell tower people when,
Yeah, we
was one-
went there, but
It was one of the suggestions, if they add more equipment, that they would be giving us an offset, and that was one of the examples of what they might pay for.
yeah, okay.
yep. They haven't added a tenant, if you will, yet.
I got you, okay.
We fully expect a lot of these things to come in at very different prices and ideally lower, but when you don't know, you don't want to put a low number on there.
So how are we gonna get the article wrapped up? Well, we got a couple more meetings to do it.
Well, is the board inclined to fully fund the water and sewer capital at the $860,000? And if something like the camera system comes in at $30,000 or even $20,000, that additional money would either be returned to retained earnings or could be used to do further on the drainage, because that $100,000 isn't going to be exact. We're going to do some drainage work, and it's going to be $98,000 or $120,000. You know, all those numbers on the page, with the exception of some of the contract things like the I&I work, are going to have
Well, I'd rather not go,
differing
I'd
numbers
rather
over
not
time.
go to town meeting with inaccurate estimates,
Well, are we?
grossly inaccurate estimates.
Yeah, I would say the only numbers that are grossly inaccurate are things like the placeholders for the cameras and the fence, because we just haven't done an RFP for it. They're good estimates, if you will. But the drainage improvement number is, hey, we're gonna try to do this much. We
Five
could-
times that.
We could do 5, 6 times that, but we're gonna do this much this year. So I wouldn't say that's a gross inaccuracy on that number. The same thing with like the valves. We could easily spend $25,000 just by picking up a phone. So if you give us that much, that's how much we're gonna spend.
Is the article
The article doesn't need
spend
to
on
be
capital
specific.
stuff, or is the article list the stuff that's getting spent on?
It's got a list of stuff.
It lists the items, it lists a whole dollar amount attached with the proposed, can be in one article, but they're itemized out.
Itemized in
It'll
the body of
typically
the, in the
say-
body of the motion and
We've
the,
done them before for
yeah.
hydrants, for instance, and it would say, replacement of hydrants, 25,000.
Yeah.
But it's that
But if
vague.
the cameras come in at half price, we can't shift it over to drainage, because town meeting didn't authorize it.
Yeah, I don't think you're required to itemize the article. It's certainly beneficial to the
Well, no, the
community.
preference, I would always itemize the article for town meeting. I
Well,
mean,
if you itemize it, you need to.
Then you're held to
Answer
that.
to the two questions about, those two items, there's a question of whether or not they are capital.
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
If those two items get moved off to operations and they're not in the operational budget, there's a conversation to be had. If they are in the operational budget already that Kevin presented, we would simply recommend that that money be moved up into the drainage line or into the valves line.
Well, I guess the point being,
Oh,
at least from my standpoint, if an astute citizen, reading this like we read it, says the same thing, does that knocks the whole 860 off the table for a year? Or until a special town meeting? I mean, if somebody in the audience that's reading this says, well, ask the question on the floor, what is this? And it's decided that it's not a capital item. Does that,
We could amend it
We're
to,
amend
we could
the
amend
article.
to move, but, yeah, we should,
It's not in the operating budget. The fact is, it's never been in the operating budget. That's why I think in some regards you can justify it as capital because there's such a backlog. Now, moving forward, you do need to budget, which is what I said at the beginning. But keep in mind that if that's the case, then you're potentially looking at rate increases if you want to budget.
well, I mean, that's one of the things is.
I don't think we would call it capital at that point, though. We would say we want to use retained earnings to pay this bill.
well, somewhere there's
If the article is just for capital items, I agree with the board that we need to pull those items off that aren't capital.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we wouldn't have a separate warrant article to fund them
that's
as
okay.
non-capital items. Because they're not in the water and sewer budget.
Well, that's okay, because that's,
Well, we can put them in the water and sewer budget.
but it's okay to put them on a
Well,
separate article.
put it on the ongoing maintenance from that.
Theoretically, each one of these items could be on a separate article.
That's what I think we're trying to avoid, though, because
Well, I
and
I
that's why I
agree.
suggest the
We'd be there for
itemization
3
may
weeks.
be detrimental to the actual completion. Because what happens if the hydrants cost 27,000? Who comes up with the other
We only do
2,000?
25 of it.
You only do up to 24.
Yeah.
9.
I mean, we gotta explain it to town meeting, we gotta show town meeting, we can't just say, hey, 800 grand.
$800,000 will be
We gotta
spent
show
by
it to
water
them.
and sewer.
And it makes sense, and it's all fine. I mean, I would, if that 25,000 should go in the operating budget, I'd put it in the operating budget. The thing I would not do is then add 25 to drainage improvements, because frankly, I think future retained earnings are gonna be less. So, I wouldn't start spending extra money now, because retained earnings is only gonna go down.
And what are your thoughts on that fire alarm system that you discussed? The fact that it's absolutely needed and it has to be done sort of immediately, should that be a standalone article separate?
Oh, you wanna do that as special? Is this special or
This
capital?
is an-
Capital is.
This is capital for FY 16.
16,
That's how this is being presented.
So we could do the fire alarm on special if you,
For
if you
FY
really,
15.
if it mattered, and you needed the extra
That's the
month or two.
If
I don't know.
it needs to be done immediately.
Oh, they could have the RFP ready to go on the street immediately after town meeting and possibly have it done by July 1st, instead of waiting till after July 1st.
That's the point, yeah.
I don't know, so that's something else to think about. I don't suppose, it doesn't seem really matter to us.
I would prefer to get it, if it's an urgent matter and it's a safety issue, I would prefer to have it on special to get it immediately done.
Especially
Start the
this
process, get it done
we've
quicker.
been made aware of it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the life
That's a
safety.
good point. Yeah, you're right. And as far as cameras and fence, I mean, say you got it, placeholders of 50-50 now. I mean, if it ended up being 45-35, and you know that number better at town meeting, that's an amendment to a motion I wouldn't mind doing. As long as it doesn't go up. But, if when we move the article, we move it at a slightly lesser amount, I got no problem at all with that, just a couple of them.
So we're going to remove maintenance.
Yeah, I'd do that.
We're going to pull fire alarm to special.
Yeah. And try to get better fence and camera by, preferably by warrant time, but definitely by town meeting time. And I would like to see some retained earnings history just to make
Yeah, I'll
myself
get
feel
that.
good. I mean, it seems like it makes all sense.
I'll get that out to the board tomorrow. I'll get the retained earnings history and the revenue.
With that in mind, we have the same issue in the water and sewer enterprise funds as we have in the general fund with a lack of capital budgeting.
Yeah.
So if we're going to use stabilization and retained earnings, and we're predicting that those numbers are going to come down over time, let's say, retained earnings are marginal 3 or 4 years from now, we've eaten through what we have here. Then 3 or 4 years from now, we have no money for these capital projects. And similar to the request at the general fund level, that we start capturing the retiring non-excluded debt to start funding a capital budget. On the water and sewer side, I don't believe that debt is treated the same way. The water and sewer enterprise can float debt as needed. So I don't know if you count that as excluded or non-excluded. But in some measure, I think the community needs to look at that water and sewer enterprise fund and say, we need to start setting aside real money to pay our bills for these types of things, rather than only doing it through debt.
I guess I sort of agree, but, I want to see a 5 or 10 year projection of revenues before I even start thinking about that stuff. And frankly, I like water and sewer because, if I'm short of money, all I gotta do is sell more water.
Well,
If I want more retained earnings, I sell more water, it's great.
Sell more water.
Make it as easy as possible to use it. I'm fine with that. Or maybe we get a couple breweries, I bet they use some water. We'll sell it to them.
Not as much as you hope.
I'm not sure I'd hammer down on the water ban. I mean, if somebody wants to spend lots of money watering their lawn at night or something, I'm fine with that.
As long as you don't violate the DEP requirements.
Right, but we tend to, historically, until recently, our water ban has been much stricter than DEP.
And
Water mightn't be a problem this spring.
Yeah. That's true, nobody's gonna use water. Yeah, I got 4 feet of snow, it's not gonna go away till July.
And there's that additional senior exemption too. If we start to see that number, which is growing, and we may want to rethink that policy with having it be needs-based or something that's consistent with some of our other senior exemptions. But if we're at that point, but that number, every month we add more and more.
Yeah, is it, it's into the 6 figures now?
Yeah.
There's a theoretical cap on it. We could determine how many homes are owned by people that qualify. But the needs measures are already used for other abatements.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be additional work to say, oh, this person's qualified for it. But it would reduce the amount of money that's flowing out for that abatement for people that aren't necessarily.
So that's been a popular abatement.
Very. Very. Every individual that is of age has been in.
So, if they've heard about it, they've been in. It's a $262 bonus. For every homeowner that's a certain age.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm for selling more water.
So
is the discussion in April, is that a long-term financial plan?
Excuse me?
The Toby discussion in April, is that a multi-year financial analysis, or is that just, you need $1.2 million for your water budget?
Right.
So we don't do a long-term financial analysis yet on our enterprise fund?
No.
Oh, okay. Something for the to-do list.
I think it's more realistic that people will be using less water. People are conserving, companies are selling conservation equipment and expecting to pay our way out of some of these deficits by encouraging people to use more water. Doesn't seem like a
Well, it's
practical solution.
counterintuitive to what the message is anyway.
Unless you're gonna build more homes, build more businesses in this community that's nearly fully built out, you're probably not gonna see a dramatic increase in water usage.
Well, we get people back in the mill, that would help.
They'll flush some toilets, that's for sure.
They used to be the biggest bill. I don't know if they still are. Maybe.
Yeah,
They used to be a big one.
still is big, fairly big.
I got you. Okay.
So we'll clean this up, I'll clean this up, and we're gonna see a warrant article then for the special town meeting for the fire alarm. And then a second one with itemized costs as accurate as we can present them within the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
And if they're not super accurate, I will ask that they be estimated on the high side.
Slightly on the high side.
So you guys can propose a reduction amendment.
Yeah, we'll move it at less. That's fine. And then the budget ones, it doesn't seem like you got a little bit of tweaking left, and that's about it, right?
On which ones?
On the budget, the operating budget for water and for sewer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've proposed a budget based on the line items that exist, but it's not where I would start from. I would recommend, particularly in the sewer side, that there be some additional, there'd be a new account number, line item that could account for more of the maintenance stuff. One area that I've identified, but again, if we've had that conversation, and depending on how much that increases, is gonna have a direct correlation with the rates. But I think we can add in a number there and still be pretty safe.
Yeah, I guess it depends a little just on, how close you can to retained earnings, but,
Yeah.
Retained earnings last year was 470 grand, and in your sewer and water treatment plant budget, you're only asking for an extra 53, so you got a little bit of room.
Yeah, but some of those sewer retained earnings were carried forward. We didn't
Oh, we didn't move them?
We didn't move them because the sewer revenue was questionable. Water, we're fine. Sewer is one we gotta watch, and that's why last year, we didn't budget for, we budgeted for it on the revenue side, but not the expense side. There was some salaries missing, and it was a questionable budget that I didn't wanna appropriate anything from, so we let it sit.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I'll get the history.
Water and sewer contract costs.
What's that?
We also know the water and sewer contract costs this year.
Yeah,
We didn't know
Yeah.
it at this time last year. The
Right.
bid was still out on the
that's
street.
true. Correct.
Okay. Agenda item number 9, free cash options, and one of our articles will be allocation of free cash. And
We're ahead of
tonight I just want to,
schedule with this one. We're ahead of schedule with this one, but I provided last year's free cash recommendation memo to the board for 15, which
Okay.
was dated mid-March, I think, last year.
Yeah.
But just for the board members that are new, see how that proposal went for 15s. And in some areas, I would think my proposal would be very similar in 16.
just because there's so many choices. You can spend it on. I mean,
There is a lot.
we got operating stabilization, we got capital stabilization, we got
OPEB.
OPED, we got snow and ice, apparently. And then the useful things would be good too.
Agreed. What we do know at this point is it's 1,835,734 is our available.
Yeah, 1.8 million. I guess it's not free cash, but what about the closeout of the old articles and stuff? Have we figured out anything for that?
Yeah. Some of them we can, there's a few that we could, they're not gonna hit for, he can close those out automatically. The issue is if we look at reallocating any of the ones that were for, bonds, that were borrowing, as opposed to free cash.
Right. I was just wondering if there's any overlap in the capital plan. You know, close out an article and had 20 grand, and
Yeah.
that could go cover half a capital item or something.
There is.
When are we gonna get a feel of
It's
that?
minimal, though. The big one we did in the
Okay.
fall. That was the $750,000 one that we, a little more than that, actually. That was the one for the roof repairs at
It
the
started at
school.
850, and we reduced it because we did spend some on
Yeah.
roofs.
There are a few, though, that have 20,000 here that we could reallocate. One that comes to mind is the old Fowler School gymnasium, which was a borrowing that was roped in with a few things that came in under budget when they demoed the gymnasium at the old Fowler School.
We borrowed for that?
It was part of a big borrowing.
Okay.
That was one item of, I think, David, you remember? I think it was like 2.1 million, 2.2 million.
Yeah, but I don't remember what else was included in
That
it.
was in there. There was, yeah, I can't recall off the top of my head, but that was one of the areas. And that was somewhere like, I don't know, 120,000 of it, and it came in at like 70. So there's some money in that one. The rest of them are fairly nominal, not anything real huge, but we'll look at that too.
Okay. I see. Any thoughts from the board on, what your priorities might be? I'm an OPED guy, but I'm usually in the minority on that one.
It's tough to say at this stage in the game, the guesstimate on snow and ice, but I would certainly say probably at least 500,000, based on where we are at this time
Does
last
that
year.
include FinCom reserve, or are you leaving that alone?
I was leaving that alone.
So we got,
This number includes
I think,
turnbacks from FinCom reserve, so it's a shuffle game. I mean, it depends on where you want to take it. It all comes out in the same.
And if something happens between the close of the warrant and June 30th, you may want to have that FinCom reserve money. If you use it
yeah,
to
right.
pay off the snow and ice.
Yeah.
There hasn't been any requests as of yet, but we do have to make the FY15 salary transfers from FinCom reserve that we didn't do with the CBAs.
oh, you want to do that from FinCom reserve and not as an article?
Yeah.
Have they had any reserve requests this year?
No.
None.
That's just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't tell school.
it's very unusual.
Yeah. But the reason I've delayed that, Bill, is because I'm looking at probably April-ish, maybe May, because there's some areas in police that can absorb some of that, so I don't need to ask for the full request from FinCom reserve. There's some in the budget that we can make work to take some of that hit.
Yeah, I got you.
We're still playing with those numbers. It's still a little early, but I'm planning to take that from FinCom reserve. But fortunately, knock on wood, we haven't had any big issues, and they're still haven't allocated any money from it. So, which is a good thing. I think this number here, this 1.8 billion, includes something like 160 or so was FinCom reserve turnback. It contributed to department turnbacks.
Yeah, I think you said roughly 400, maybe 500 was turned back?
Yeah.
Because in my mind, that's kind of like, well, that probably ought to be the stabilization amount. But,
Yeah, almost, about 160 of it was from FinCom. There was money it was a decent amount of turnback from the police department, and that was because it took us a while to fully staff the dispatch. So there was some that was in the budget that didn't get used. We also had some staff turnover at the police department that there was vacancies for a little while, and then new officers are cheaper than veteran officers. And so they had some pretty decent salary amounts that we're able to, plus the chief's done a great job with, the overtime budget, we've been in good shape there. That's where we might be able to pick up some of the FY15 salary increases to cover it.
I got you.
So yeah, what comes to my mind are similar areas as the snow and ice deficit set them on. I mean, we've thrown out a figure of what we'd like to see for general fund capital planning.
Yeah, well, that was kind of pre-snow and ice. But, yeah. Well, I think we have an extra week to figure it out, right? Because it's on the special, so we got till like
Yeah.
April 7th instead of March
Yeah.
31st. But, all right.
Right.
Um,
Like this said, this one was March 18th, so this was a month ago, a month later last year, so
Yeah.
we're in good shape.
Well, we only have 2 or 3 more meetings, so we gotta figure it out somehow. One free cash thing I'm gonna be advocating for is to have $38,142.25 go to the Community Enhancement Stabilization Fund. And the thought is,
What was that specific?
I'm just pretending. I'm pretending that's the amount we got from parking meter revenues, because Andrew would never tell me what it is, so I'm guessing.
Oh,
It's slightly higher than
I
that.
think it is, but
well, you said there was no rush on that, but we did put in the request to get the numbers. It did slip my mind
I
though,
think
but
it's in the 40s.
But my thinking is that, you know, with our cultural district and other stuff downtown.
You mean
it kinda-
downtown
it-
enhancement.
It kind of needs a dedicated funding, and why not use some or all those nickels and dimes?
That was former Selectman Bob Nadeau's recommendation for years. and
Yeah,
probably
I just see
yours
that
before him.
the balance is under 40,000 in that account. And, you know, we did say that we were willing to put in money for the cultural district, but we didn't actually say where it would come from. So-
Yeah, and I do think too, the Economic Development Committee is going to be putting forth a proposal to the Board of Selectmen on being able to, Andrew could probably speak to it better, being able to capitalize on how they can go about bridging the question of how do we request the money. So a policy recommendation, perhaps that it be at their level to receive applications, and then so like a more of a vetting process to bring back to the Board of Selectmen for final approval. But, you know, there's the cultural district, there's the Eric Wing presentation that he's presented on some of those initiatives. I think it's a good idea.
facade improvement.
Facade improvement grants.
Yeah, okay, so something to think about. That'd be fun. Any other thoughts on free cash? More to come on that, but,
Yeah, one other discussion we've had was the funding of, and, you know, I don't know how broad we go with this, but there's been discussions with Dr. Girardi and Bill Coleman, the chair of the school committee, with regards to doing an assessment of the parking and traffic flow over at the schools.
oh, I thought that was in the capital plan, okay.
That would be, yeah, I don't know if that ever, I don't think that made the capital plan, no. You know, some engineering service to do that assessment, and there was conversation whether we do, if we do a town-wide one as well, or if we keep them separate, or we don't do one for the town, but we do one just for the school. But that's not in the capital plan, that's something we had hoped to do.
Do we have a number on it?
We would hope to do in FY16. Bob met with an engineer from Green something, and it was, with all this snow debacle, it was canceled twice, and Jason Creel and I were gonna meet with him on one, and then it got pushed off, and I think Bob ended up with meeting with just one of the guys on the third reschedule, but I don't have a number yet.
He put the number 20,000 on his application. It might have been hypothetical, but
Yeah,
that's what he was looking at.
we talked at
What
least
application was that?
It was the
25.
CPC grant. He put it as
Or,
one of his figures for outside funding, but it was a parking study, so it was,
Yeah, I
different
wouldn't think
than
that
the
would meet CPC.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't realize he put in an application for that.
it wasn't for the study, but it was just a mention of outside funding for
Okay. Yeah.
possible.
We talked at least, we talked, Bill and I, that it probably would be at least 25 for anybody that would be interested in it, to do a parking and traffic flow assessment
Do a good
for the
job.
whole school.
I think they'll be able to get a number in time for the.
Yeah, I'll talk to him and see. Like I said, he was waiting on a proposal, an estimate from that firm that did look at it. That should give us a good idea, because he went over, you know, what the plan was, so I'll get a status on that. I don't know if there's any desire to do anything town-wise, if you think that's necessary or not.
Yeah, what is it?
For traffic
What are you
flow?
asking?
No, specifically for parking, a more detailed.
Oh, yeah, I
parking
forgot about
assessment.
that. Yeah, right, we gotta find a couple dozen parking spaces, so,
Yeah.
yeah, we might need money for that.
How much is a bucket of paint, Bill?
That's expensive paint, it's like $40 a gallon,
It
Jesus.
is expensive.
Yep, we gotta get some double-headed meters, but yeah, that's true. But, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we don't wanna miss that opportunity. Because theoretically, the rail trail would start in the fall, right?
Yeah, well, they'll go out to bid in the fall. And that's when it's advertised.
I'll go out to bid.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we're gonna do something, we wanna do something before then, huh?
Yeah, we probably need to.
Oh, all right, something else to talk about. Oh, yeah, and there's still the unknown about rail trail acquisition costs?
Yeah.
Ooh, the list is getting bigger.
We have, I mean, it's always gonna be kind of an unknown, right? Until we really start having the conversation. We have a known as to what the value is, but what we're actually gonna have to pay is still kind of sort of the unknown. So if you wanna look at worst-case scenario of full value, we have the Avery Associates assessment on what the, on both the temporary easements and the permanent easements. There's a value for each and broken up.
So last time we spoke about this, we managed to confuse ourselves as to when the cash flow occurs.
Yeah,
And there was some issue of, you know, we didn't have to come up with the cash right away, we could come up with the cash after the project commences and stuff. Do we know?
Come up with it up front. I got clarification on that. But Kevin's correct, that we don't know how much that is. The Avery Associates estimates are sort of like full market value estimates.
Yep.
And we know that many of them are going to be given to us.
Yep.
Some have already been promised, some are unlikely to be a controversial conversation. Others, like the presentation we saw earlier tonight, might be a quid pro quo situation, but we won't know until we see them in front of planning board. If they want full market value, for instance, it's a 5-figure number. So,
Okay.
I believe the total, Kevin, is in the $300,000 range, and we have roughly half of that from the CPC appropriations, assuming that this year's request is granted.
Yeah, we have some that we're still sitting on that were prior year CPC appropriations for right-of-way acquisitions. That's, that we still have in available funds.
Mhm.
And there's an application request into CPC now for additional funds. With that being said, it still isn't enough for the full value.
Again, we don't expect to have to pay full value.
Yeah, right. It's just, well, we're gonna have to decide sometime in April what to put down on the article, though.
Yeah.
It's an interesting chicken and egg dilemma because,
We can't be the first town doing it.
well, easement holders may say, oh, well, they appropriated the full amount, we'll hold out for it.
Yeah, right.
So, perhaps you use FinCom reserve for that money, assuming you had it available.
The requirements did change too. I mean, they used to just kind of, yeah. Now you have to actually show them, you have to provide them paper of what it's worth and what it's valued at. It was always kind of a handshake. Yeah, it's worth something, but none of us really know what it is, so just give it to us. it's much more formalized than what it was when prior trail negotiations and stuff were going on, particularly like the Bruce Freeman Trail in Acton. So it has changed a bit. But that is another area that we're
All
going
right,
to have
wow.
funding for.
Okay. So we'll be talking about it at future meetings, and hopefully the list won't get much longer. Can we go on to the next agenda item?
I'm good. Yeah.
All right, agenda item number 10, Board of Selectmen goals, next steps. And this is kind of on the, the senior center was great, but what have you done for me lately thing. So where are we gonna go on our goals for the last few months of the year? What do we got lined up?
I haven't prepared anything since our my 6-month report card. I think, like I said, we have done things since then. Like I said, you mentioned the ribbon cutting there. I think now most of the goals that I would think, as you talk about sort of the 3 areas that are the selectmen's goals for this year, would be enhancement of programs. And that's part of what we're working with Amy, the new Council on Aging Director, with identifying a calendar of programs, identifying program instructors. She's already engaged in, started reaching out to providers and things of that nature for different programs. And I think at this point, big picture stuff, beyond that, I think it's a little more ingrained within Council on Aging operations that are the direct benefit for seniors, and that's where we'll continue to push and focus. As you heard in my FY16 budget proposal, it talked about funding in 16, the possibility of a outreach worker, whether that be through contracted, through a more specified service, whether it be potential regionalization contract where we could share with maybe another surrounding community, where Maynard could pay a portion of a salary for that individual. But nonetheless, those are, I think, where our focus is and our goals are for enhancement to senior services is through programs and outreach, and that's moving forward. We kind of sort of got them a roof over their head, if you will. Now we're building the program. So that's really what I see as the next step. And we're already starting to do that. Andrews meets with Amy on a frequent basis. And now that we have that professional in there and full-time, that's where we're moving.
Quick aside on that. Have we changed the hours for the senior center yet?
No.
Okay.
No. Have you had discussion about that?
Yeah, the decision we made was that we would keep them at 9 to 1 for that's when they're open. And that's a short-term decision. We can change it any time. But the part-time staff that work there, that's the hours that they're scheduled to. And then it gives Amy time to meet all the people that she needs to meet, the people at Minuteman, meetings with me, all the development pieces. Once all those things are in place and the programs are sort of flowing, expanding the hours will be easier to sort of accomplish.
What's the attendance been like since the new place opened as far as people going?
Yeah, I would say it's about the same. Maybe, it's about the same as it's been since like November or December, which was the activity, knowing that we were moving and so on, was bringing in some either new faces or more regular faces more frequently. I would say it's the same now. It's only been a couple of weeks and we've had, I think, 3 snow days.
It's been tough to get there.
Yeah, but also Amy's poised to release a regular regimen of calendared events. We've targeted March 1st as sort of, the launch date for, having people booked in to do, whether it's a Zumba class or whatever it is that she plans. But basically giving her this month to get her legs under her and do all that outreach that she has to do with, as I mentioned, Minuteman. There's a whole bunch of people she has to meet with. LRTA. She's already met with the Boys and Girls Club, a few other groups that provide ancillary services. But so, once we get into that released calendar, we expect attendance to be much stronger.
Are we, for our fiscal 16 budget, are we assuming expanded hours or not?
We're assuming the same budget for part-time clerical staff,
That's right.
so.
Yeah, the
Could we?
expanded hours aren't going to be a problem because, like, let's say they're running a class there from 1 to 2 p.m. The director could still attend a meeting or do some administrative work while somebody else is conducting that class. So the hours could be expanded in that way. It's just in the short term where, you know, she can't have the center open and active specifically until she has these other things in place. So she needs some of that time in the short term to get those things in place.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Is there an expectation that the hours be full-time?
I just kind of assume full-time director more than half-time hours, but
Well, if
maybe
she's-
that's not
If she's
cause and
attending a
effect, I don't
meeting in
know.
my office, she has to lock the
Yeah,
place
no,
up and
it's
kick
not.
people out.
it's not that easy, you know, when if it's open, the phone, I mean, it's, be tough for the director to maintain,
Well, I wasn't thinking just the director, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
we funded the outreach individual, 20-hour a week.
One of the things we're hoping to accomplish is to develop a strong volunteer network. And if that's in place, those volunteers can staff the desk and keep the place open for routine visits or while class is in session. It just doesn't exist right now.
How did the previous director manage half-time, yet still made it to presumably came over to meetings and everything else?
There was no programs.
And there
She was the
were,
same
and
hours as the clerk.
the clerk was there,
She
which,
only attended meetings from 9 to 1. If we had a meeting at 3, she wasn't there.
gotcha.
And there wasn't much program planning going on, to be
Well,
honest.
that I understand.
Yeah. But when she would leave, David would be in the office. But that's a good point. I think, you know, part of what she's focusing on programs and all that, but starting to develop a Friends of Maynard Council on Aging, those types of things, and through different senior volunteer programs, maybe a tax work-off person that could help from, say, 1 to 4 hours. So I think we already was the biggest impact to the budget, and we were trying to I know Andrew put together a bigger budget than what I even gave them, but part of it wanted me to wait through 16 and have the new director that we hired sell the budget that individual needed. So if they if she determines after going through next year's budget that there's a need for a full-time clerk position, for instance, then I wanted her to be able to show that.
So if Governor Baker gives us an extra $1 million in local aid, you think maybe part of that would be for senior budget?
We could handle that, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is it opens a couple different things. You could hire two part-time individuals. That could be a morning and afternoon, and you're not dealing with union issues. The minute you go over 19 hours, it becomes a potential union position within the clerical union. And then that opens up the different conversations, not to mention benefits eligible and those costs beyond an hourly rate. But it's short money, and when you break it down, it's not a huge budget impact. And it might be, if that's something that we want to discuss further, I don't think it would be a huge budget, but it would be around other priorities being met first and potential revenue that was freed up. Perhaps if we got this huge blessing of a 2% health insurance increase, that's a lot of money right there that we just freed up.
I got you, okay.
for some of the conversations I've had with the director, it's sort of the opposite of the Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come scenario. We've essentially built something, but if we don't populate it with interesting services and activities, the people won't come. So just putting in a full-time greeter doesn't necessarily build what we want to build. I almost go the other way, you know, force people to say, you got to be open longer, we don't want to leave. You know, then we can sort of justify the expanded staff.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's what's going on at the senior level.
One other senior thing I was trying to remember, did we say we were gonna be trying to do an analysis of the senior tax relief that Sudbury did? And see what impact it would be in Maynard?
Yeah, we did
Are
talk
we
about
doing
that. In fact, Andrew and I talked about that last week. We gotta follow up with that. That's on our list to discuss.
You see that there's a,
I know it was sent over to, it was sent over to the Board of Assessors and.
Would have been a long time ago.
Huh?
Yeah, it would have been a long time
It was a
ago.
long time ago, yeah. So, yeah.
the legislature apparently has recognized that, and there's possibilities that it's going to be expanded legislatively to allow for it without having to go through a special legislation, so it's coming.
It doesn't seem to be that big a number crunching deal, but it'd just be nice to
Right.
stay a little bit ahead of the curve on that one.
Okay.
It's into the needs-based program, or is this just a?
It's needs, it's definitely needs.
And different from the tax worker program?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
Needs-based, age-based.
and longevity. based.
Longevity. You have to have lived in town for 10 years.
Okay.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, we talked about it last
Yeah.
week. We gotta dust that off.
Yeah, okay.
Add that to it. On that, economic development wise, you know, we continue to look for opportunities to meet with, existing businesses and work with the, Economic Development Committee. We're trying to, you know, we've had some, looking at, obviously the big one is the, clock tower, place project, and look forward to working with the new management team there. You know, it's economic development just is a continuous, conversation and ongoing effort.
One of the things that came up during the board's policy subcommittee meeting was the liquor license regulations, whether
Yeah.
ours are onerous, and
That's
we were
on,
trying to debate whether actually we were gonna get an analysis done, or we were gonna have to do it ourselves.
it's on the agenda for their next meeting.
I'm not
Right.
sure the committee feels qualified to do anything more than weigh in sort of anecdotally. If you're looking for a sort of hardcore analysis, the committee's not really built for that. It's really a job for staff. They meet once a month. Most of them are, you know, employed outside of the community, so they're not gonna see the direct information that you wanna have analyzed. If you
Well,
want
it's just a
to-
comparison of local regs against state regs, and whether ours are stricter or not. That's all it really is.
We should be able to give that to you by your next meeting. The
Yeah,
Economic Development Committee does have it on their agenda, but what you just asked for is really analysis work we can do in-house. You just want a comparison of the regs and, you know, which one's on the stricter side of the scale.
Yeah, because if we're just copying the state regs, it's like, well, there's nothing we can do about it.
yeah.
But if we're making up our own rules, then.
Yeah, they have had that for a little while, and I know it's on the next,
There
Okay.
was some
Agenda.
misunderstanding in the fall about the expectation, and so it sort of got backburnered.
Well, anecdotal stories would be always useful too, you know, it's like, oh yeah, it was such a pain to do this, or, no, it wasn't a big deal, whatever, but if somebody's gone through it.
Right. And I think that came back before the board when, actually, Bill, when you were out, making sure they were on the right page, the Economic Development Committee, with prioritizations of the EDC, and it's what the makeup, I know we had the conversation then as well. You know, I think Chris came in for that meeting, and we had asked the board, you know, is this what the charge of the committee is, and making sure that we're still in line with it. So we'll find out.
All right, and if they can't get to it, they can't, get to it, that's fine too, just as long as we know and we'll
Yeah. No, it's
seek it out a
definitely-
different venue.
It's definitely on the agenda. And then the other item was communication, and again, that's a continuously evolving thing. I think we've made improvements in communication. It's not perfect, and we can continue to.
So I got two communication things for you,
Sure.
two ideas here. One is I noticed that the Board of Selectmen finally put their minutes on the website. Excellent. But maybe all the committees should do that? It's just so weird to go to some of their web pages and there's nothing there. I mean, I would think Becky or somebody could.
You're saying that the Board of
Organize it.
Selectmen meeting minutes weren't on there prior?
That's correct. They were not until the last
There was a few
6,
that
8
were
weeks.
missing.
No,
Yeah.
they were all missing. We had all the agendas and stuff, but we never had the final meeting minutes. But now they're all there.
Okay.
So we're all good, but it'd be nice if we brought the other committees up to
Yeah.
speed. And, you know, maybe they don't have the resources to do it, and we could do it through our office or something, or I don't know, but it just seems appropriate.
Yeah, well, nobody posts anything in-house, so it's not that difficult. So once they approve them, it's just a matter of emailing it to Dave Griffin,
Yeah.
and he'll post them, so it shouldn't be a big deal. We'll look at that. We can bring that, I'll bring that up too at the,
It just seems like very low fruit to
yeah,
say
no,
we did something.
agreed.
The other thought is the, abutter notifications on hearings. Different types of hearings have different notification requirements. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it's, you know, X yards, and sometimes it's the guy across the street, and sometimes it's not.
Correct. Depending
I
on.
mean, I kind of want our notification to be standardized at the maximum. I have no idea which legal process requires the largest notification, but range of notification, but it just seems like, you know, a planning board hearing notification should have the same abutter list as a liquor license hearing
I
notification.
think part of the problem for that, though, Bill, is that correct me if I'm wrong with this, but the applicant for various things is the one responsible for paying the costs of notifying the abutters, especially on a planning board thing. And I wouldn't want to put a small mom and pop liquor store that wants to come in and, you know, purchase a small little liquor store and say, oh, by the way, you're going to have a $15,000 abutter notification. You know, that's an exaggeration, but,
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and maybe we could just put a list together of what the notifications are and see if, you know, there's a big difference. But,
Yeah.
I don't know, the one that doesn't notify the person across the street annoys the heck out of me.
Right. Well, it has to do with directly contiguous.
Yeah, right. It's like, really? I'm across the street and I'm staring at the thing all day, and that's
Yeah.
not, that doesn't count? You don't tell
And
me about
They
it?
put, I mean, it's one of those things where you put in the parameters and it spits it out.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's no reason to.
But, I mean,
expand
David
the
does a good
parameters.
point, yeah. I mean, you're not trying to notify 4,000 households for
Right.
every event, but, you know, side-by-side buildings, one notifies 20
Yeah,
and
the
one
Board of
notifies
Assessors
50.
provides the abutters list, the certified abutters list, and then we do the certified abutter notifications in-house. But you're absolutely right, the applicant pays for all that cost. I think it's $25 just for the certified abutters list. And then off of those, you know, whatever a certified meal is, and
Yeah,
it
right.
can add up.
Yeah, it could probably cost them $10 a butter or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe a little less than that, but depends on the extensiveness of the list.
Yeah.
25 is a flower.
Maybe we just start with just putting together a list of what the abutter notification choices are or requirements are. I have no idea if there's 2 or 3 or 4 different ones.
Yeah, the different projects and statutes dictate the.
But yeah, I was just, you know, mulling over communication-oriented goals that are specific and,
You can make them stricter.
Yeah.
unless they're super strict. you know.
I was just clarifying if they were bylaw or state law.
Yeah.
Kevin, clarify.
But yeah, I mean, we certainly welcome that feedback. Any, like I said, any opportunity, there's always room to improve on communications, and we.
well, that's why that will always be on our goals
Yeah.
list every year.
Anything I'm missing there?
No, I think,
Okay.
you know, some of the achievements we've had with communication will probably add to your next report.
fair enough.
Yeah, and we've had a lot, but it seems like a lot of them are within these walls rather than out to the people, but that's okay.
They're listening on TV right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Well, there we go. We could start televising the school committee meetings, because
Hi, Diane.
that's where the money gets spent. I don't know why they watch us, but. okay.
Continuously improve, but there has to be a little bit of self-will too.
Yep.
by
Good
some.
point. Anything else on goals from the board members? All right, let's roll to Agenda 11, Economic
Yeah.
Development. Apparently, I bought the clock tower. Is that-
Yeah, I'll keep this pretty brief. I sent a notice out to the board about Saracen Properties purchasing the note for Clock Tower Place. They're fully, well, they're completely, the management team is in the building. Wellesley Management Group is no longer there in any fashion. They have hired back one or two of the maintenance folks that were part of Wellesley Management that now are employees of Saracen Properties. We're anticipating a meeting with Saracen potentially, hopefully next week, and then what I'd like to do is bring in the management team to the board. Perhaps we can set that up for our first meeting in March, Bill, as a potential agenda item if they're available. But they want to come in and meet with the team, go over, you know, it'd be good because we haven't had any conversations with them since they have actually acquired the note and see where they're thinking. And our conversation was solely with the director of construction, you know, who probably has a sense, but he wasn't really discussing much of what their vision for the property was. So be good to have that conversation and then have them in before the board so the board can meet them and have the same discussion.
Could we possibly, and I don't know, post a meeting for them specifically, but have it be a much more informal event? For example, cookies and whatever, just to sit down and have, obviously it's a public meeting, but rather than sitting up here, have them there, whatever, much more informal, where we have an opportunity to sort of just have a social conversation with them versus a business conversation with them.
Could have it at the golf course.
A welcome to town.
Yeah.
Just, well, no, it's it's an opportunity for us to sort of get to know them, they get to know us, we can ask questions. Again, open meeting, nothing illegal about the fact that anybody in the town can come, but it's a coffee and Danish thing, not a sit here and have people in the audience and have a formal conversation. I think it's just a better way to kick off a relationship than to have, a barrier between.
Would you want that to be at your next meeting or at a separately held meeting?
I would think it would be a separately held meeting. Just to, it may not, nobody else may think it's a good idea, but I just think that's, we want them to once again become our biggest taxpayer, and we want them to succeed with what they're doing, but we should have an understanding, mutual understanding right from the outset as to where everybody's thinking and heading and whatever. I just think it'd be much more I think it would be a much more positive meeting than having the formal, how are you doing, nice to see you, welcome to town, what brought you to Maynard? That doesn't get us anywhere.
What do you guys think?
Terrible, Dave. Terrible idea.
Well, you don't like the coffee and donuts?
Hardly ever.
That's something else?
Well, I would think it would be better to have it in the afternoon or the early evening, but point being, just much more, not a formal Board of Selectmen's meeting. Meet the management type thing that the board has posted for, and anyone in town can come.
I think if you posted it, there has to be a certain formality to it.
Only the effect that you call a meeting, the time is set, and the meeting's called to order, and the meeting's adjourned. That's the formality.
I agree, I don't have a problem with the idea, but if you post it as an official meeting, it just seems as though, some will mistake it for, what the forum becomes. in my mind. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a great idea. I'm just thinking, once you post it as a meeting, as a town meeting, as a board of selectmen meeting, officially, it just, opens it up to different mindsets, I guess.
Yeah, and
More-
that's fair enough.
I
and
guess,
that's why-
I guess it would be more mischievous mindsets, would be, no one in the room, but I just think, it gives some people an opportunity to voice opinions that, maybe they belong in this room, and maybe they should be shared in a proper forum, and I just think some people will take advantage of that forum.
Okay, bad
Unnecessarily.
idea then.
Unnecessarily, no, I don't think it's a bad idea, it's just,
I meant that
it's
somewhat.
just a different, it's just a different thought about it. I think it's a great idea, I just don't know that it's a great idea for them.
Might go over like a lead
For
balloon.
those guys,
I got you. Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe so.
I'm thinking about both sides, but,
Or just do a meet and greet.
I mean, a meet and greet would be
Not
great.
even a meeting, just meet and greet. How you doing?
Yeah.
Have them make a speech.
Well, that's effectively what he's saying, but
Yeah, but it doesn't
if
have
we
to be.
intentionally show up together, we kind of have to post it.
It might be something that we discuss with them when they come here, if they'd like to have that type of situation.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Would they like to join us?
Maybe they could host it.
Yeah, maybe they could host it as right.
Yeah.
They could
Okay,
host, they could
that's
host
probably
it.
a better,
They could host it at the country club,
Or a clock tower, of all things.
or a clock tower.
wherever they want.
Yeah, probably a better idea. All
All
right,
right,
I was just,
we'll mull it over some, but
all right,
But it would be a nice thing, to your point, to be in a different setting. I just don't know, once we
Logistically.
post it as an official meeting, what it leaves itself open to.
If they invite you to a meeting at their place, does that constitute an open meeting?
I don't know.
The draws, only three of us can go.
I
Two of
think
us.
it's the quorum issue. If
Yeah.
if we know we're going to be at a location,
I
we're
don't
going to have some type
And
of,
the premise of
I'll make it.
whether it's relationship building or not, it's.
correct.
We'll figure it out. I kind of think that, the broader picture and the broader meat is later after they get their feet settled.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's kind of where I would toy.
But in the meantime, I want to start a rumor and ask you if they're going to change the name. Is it still going to be Clock Tower Place?
We haven't met with them at all. Like I said, we're hoping to have that scheduled for next week.
I kind of forget when it was first called Clock Tower Place.
98.
Am I right?
no, it's been Clock Tower Place for a long time.
No, it used to just be the mill.
Oh,
Oh, well, the
For a
mill,
long time, it was just the mill,
yeah, well, that's,
right? You're the historian.
The historian.
This guy is a
it's
historian.
still the mill as far as I'm concerned, but when did it officially get the name Clock Tower Place?
Well, next March 3rd, when Vic is here again, we'll ask Vic, and he will tell us.
Wellesley Management didn't deem it the clock tower?
I kind of think they did.
I think it was in 98
Yeah.
that it happened.
It's gonna be like TD Garden, they're gonna go back to the old name.
Oh, yeah. It's the garden. The mill.
Why did somebody put it out there that they may change the name?
No, I'm just starting.
Oh.
Spreading rumors.
That's Bill's way. That's the way Bill
That's
makes it.
question number one when we meet.
Yeah, really. You can change the name? You gotta look at the town. You can change the name. Look at the town seat.
So yeah, we'll have that meeting and certainly arrange for them to come before the board.
Okay.
129 Acton Street, you've heard of that this evening. A developer approached us about there's no formal application at this time. There's nothing that's public, but looking at doing an overhaul of a downtown property that could be coming down the pipeline.
I got the answer to that question. January 1st, 1998, it officially became known as Clock Tower Place.
I guess that makes me the historian.
So you're the historian.
There you go.
Still a mill to me.
So that could be something coming down the pipeline potentially for the spring. We're working with the owner. We finally made contact and outreach with the owner of the Murphy Snyder building. Had a meeting discussion with him, Bill Nemser, town planner. Engaged, had him in of the discussion about how we can potentially clean up that property, if you will. Try to improve it, at least get the broken window, boarded window fixed, and some other potential facade improvements and cleanup.
I still say we can just paint the plywood.
Yeah, something. The only problem is we don't own the building, so we have to work with the property owner.
He's agreed to fix the window by the end of the month, and
Which
we'll,
one is it?
if he does that, we'll see that as a good faith effort on his part. He has indicated a desire to do other improvements.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right at the corner there. It's a very visible, entryway into the town, and seen better days.
Mhm.
So we'll continue working with him, but he may be somebody that is in need of a improvement grant.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Be a good area to clean up that corner. That's it on economic development. Snow keeping everybody in.
Get any updates on the dormant liquor licenses?
No, we have
We're gonna
reached,
send them a nice
we have reached
reminder
out
letter.
to them
Last week.
via email. And I actually asked Stephanie that today. We haven't heard back from them.
Because Chris, I remember, asked specifically that they come in
I was
periodically.
gonna ask again in a few minutes.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I'll retract the
No, it's
question.
okay. It's
Yeah,
done.
we did reach out to them. I think it was the beginning of last week.
Yeah, it was Tuesday or Wednesday last week.
So we'll find out. We'll plug it away this
Okay.
week again.
All right.
But it was via email, and we can send something a little more formal, but I know they get the email,
Nah.
so.
I'll pick up the phone tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
They didn't respond back. I'm pretty sure that we know what the answer is.
They don't have an answer.
Can't find a good cook.
TA report. For those that weren't aware, we had a pretty major blizzard in February.
Just one?
Completed the MEMA preliminary assessment, which is, it's led by MEMA. It's a preliminary assessment by county. It determines basically if a county is eligible for a federal disaster declaration. It takes a 48-hour window of what they deem the worst time period of it, and if eligible and declared as a county, not a town, but as a county, so all of Middlesex County. The way they do that is they based it on historical storms because it's snow. It's not like a major disaster event like a hurricane that took out X buildings, et cetera. The way they do that is they look at 90% of the worst of the historic storm index because it's just snow. We think Middlesex County will meet that. We know Western Mass won't. So Hampton and the counties out in the Western Mass won't make that threshold, but fairly certain Suffolk County, Middlesex will make that. But the way they do that is they have to assess. They have to get a disaster assessment, preliminary, broad numbers for your impacts on town. So all of your snow plowing, overtime is the only thing that's eligible. So your overtime, your contractual, your salt supplies, things like that, impacts with public safety. So at your regular shift wouldn't be covered, but anything that you put in is what they call protective measures. So when you add in, you bring in another shift for that 48-hour period, all of those items are reimbursable up to 75%. And that's assuming that the disaster declaration is awarded. So right now, MEMA has those preliminary assessments from all of the communities. They're looking at it on a county base. If they determine that the county is eligible, they will then send that through the governor. The governor will request through FEMA a disaster declaration.
What's best case for?
The best case would be 75% of our total.
No, but 75% of 500,000 or 75%
No,
of 100,000?
Yeah, I don't recall what the exact number was, but it's over 100. I mean, it's in the six figures. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of effort, paperwork-wise and all that. I mean, this would, if eligible, this will be my sixth in 5 years that I've been able to recoup hundreds of thousands of dollars. So on our end, we're very well versed in it. Stephanie and I have done, like I said, this will be the sixth one. So we know what it takes, and there's a lot of work. We meet with FEMA public assistance folks, and there's a lot that goes into it, but we'll get it. The problem is, if we get eligibility, we're not going to see a check in FY15, but it'll show up. Probably would be sometime in, potentially late summer time frame, depending on where they're at. But it also depends on state by state. If the other states had big impacts and they had a lot of disaster declarations at the same time, that bogs things down. But just want to be aware, it looks like we as a county will be eligible, and then we'll deal with our local, what they call project worksheets, PWs, and then all of the, it's the federal government, so it's about that thick of documentation. You got to document everything from collective bargaining agreements to invoices to proof that you paid the invoices. It's a pretty extensive process, but any dollar we can get back is worth our effort. So we try to capitalize on as much of it as we could, and then hope we get 75% of it. You'll notice in the free cash number for, I think it did hit 14s. There was a FEMA reimbursement. When you look at the breakdown of free cash, there's a FEMA reimbursement of like 72,000, I think it was, and that was from my prior year blizzard of 13, which was February 8th through the 9th of 2013. We ended up getting back close to $80,000 from that one. So,
And that money has to roll into free cash. I mean,
it
you
doesn't
can carry over the snow and ice deficit. Can you carry over the
No.
snow and ice reimbursement revenue?
It can go back to the departments if it's within the same fiscal year.
Yeah,
We don't have.
that's
another-
unlikely.
And we don't have another account. There are some communities that actually have established, like disaster accounts, which are
Huh.
kind of like revolving accounts. So any of that FEMA reimbursement money, you could take in and deposit it into that account and then utilize that for future disasters. We don't have anything like that set up, so assuming reimbursement would come in the next fiscal year, it would just close out at the end of that fiscal as a unanticipated revenue. But hey, it's still money back to the town.
Yep.
Which is good. And every year we've had, seems like there's been a lot in the last 5, but it's good money.
Okay.
We're moving forward with that biannual OPEB actuarial assessment, every 2-year requirement in GASB. We hire an actuarial firm. We had a firm out of Connecticut that we've utilized in the past. I don't know if we will use them again. We might look at another set of eyes. We may not. But it is an actuarial firm, and we'll be putting that out, engaging with them soon, probably, within probably March timeframe, to do that assessment.
We should have a report before the end of March.
By the end of March, yeah, is that what they're saying? Okay. So just so you're aware of that. Again, that's one of those things that's done every 2 years, and you look at that liability every time they run those numbers and they do that actuarial study, that number will change based on what we got going on currently. The facilities manager search, we've kind of narrowed it down to 5 candidates, which will be interviewed by the end of February. Those 5 candidates will be brought in for interviews, and by the end of February, at least for preliminary interviews, and move to the next phase of that. Not a huge list. What did we end up with? Final 15?
12.
12 total. Of that, we're only bringing 5 in for interviews.
Do they look like they have the skills to do the life cycle costing of carpets and other stuff that adds up?
There's several very well qualified candidates.
Good.
And there are several that will just be able to keep things steady as she goes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, we're competing with Concord. We posted the same job 3 days later.
Who would want to work for Concord? Jeez.
The Mass DEP meeting that we've been talking about, we received notification from Marion DePinto from Mass DEP, and they're looking to shoot for a meeting in April, since she will be away for 2 weeks in March, and looking to you folks to find out your availability for an evening that both the Selectmen and the Conservation Commission could be available for an evening or evenings, proposed evenings in April. That's for the Hayes, was it Hayes and something property over there, right? Or the Marshall Hall.
Well, I didn't think it was for the property, I thought it was for the area.
Yeah, it's Hayes Street and what are they listed as? Waltham Hayes, but
Isn't it in the email?
I don't know.
The street address in Linda's part of it.
Hayes Arthur neighborhood.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause it's not site-specific, because it's
No, well,
larger, it's a larger issue.
It's a regional problem,
Yeah,
neighborhood problem.
so do we want to pick a date?
neighborhood
Do
problem.
we want to give her a couple dates now?
Assigned to a site-specific issue, though.
Yeah, she's looking for dates in April, and the CONSCOM, who's also meeting tonight, is gonna come up with some dates, and hopefully we have some that match.
I mean, we're meeting the 7 and 21.
Give enough notice to residents.
I would think that we would not want it to be a night of one of our meetings.
Do we want to give her the 14 and 28?
Tuesday night's your best nights?
Well, I don't know, I mean, we've kind of written them off, so.
But CONSCOM meets as well, so,
Oh, is it? Oh,
well, like they're meeting tonight, right now they're in sync with you guys. But it's probably a good night for those people if that's when they meet.
I'm okay with Thursdays, too. It doesn't much matter, but we should probably give her 3 or 4 days, so.
So Tuesdays and Thursdays of both of those weeks?
Of,
14, 16, 28, 30?
I won't be here the 16th, but
14th, 21st, 14th,
We do the
23rd, and 28th, is that what you said?
14, 16, 28, and 30.
Is that Tuesday, Thursday,
Yeah,
2 weeks apart?
yep.
14th, 16th, 28th, 30th?
Yeah, why don't we throw that out, see if it works for her.
Okay. 16, 28, 30. April 20th is school vacation week. You somewhere warm?
They're on vacation again?
Yeah, no,
Kids are,
the
yeah.
courtroom in New York
On
City.
vacation this week.
Courtroom in New York City.
Oh.
The 22nd is Earth Day, according to my calendar.
Might be warm for somebody, but not for me.
What else? I think I had one more other thing. Oh, yeah, the parking meeting that was initiated by the Maynard Business Alliance had been rescheduled twice due to snowstorms, and that has been rescheduled to February 23rd, which is this upcoming Monday, at 5:30, same location, Serendipity. So try that again.
Okay, it's gonna snow at 4:30 on February 23rd,
Yeah.
guaranteed.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, scheduling that meeting seems to cost snowstorms.
Yeah, it does. That's all I have on my.
Okay. Chairman report. We had the meeting of the subcommittee on policy and regulations a week or two ago. And we came up with a list of half a dozen policies that we might theoretically take a look at. The first ones were the water and sewer, and we went through the water and sewer regs and the cemetery regs, and we were gonna bring Chris in next week on Tuesday to talk about it, but Jason's talking like he's not gonna be around.
Oh.
So without Jason to translate, I think we'd be lacking.
Yeah, I had asked Chris today if he had heard that he'd make sure he didn't receive a list of questions, so.
Yeah, well, Jason has the questions too, so
Okay.
I think Chris is off the hook
Okay.
for next week. But we'll work something out there. The only other thing is, there's the meeting about 129 Parker on Feb. 26. It's kind of a rehash of the meeting planning board and everybody had to talk about the interpretation of current zoning restrictions and things. I know you went to that meeting, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have interest in going to the one on the 26th, or
Yeah. it's not a
somebody else
problem.
want to
That's not
go?
a problem. That's not a problem to
Yeah.
go.
I mean, I was gonna go, I just, we can't have too many people go, but for some continuity and,
Yeah, that's fine.
in interpretation. That'll be fine, okay.
This isn't, it's not,
Yeah, it won't snow.
it's the, what, the review of the ad hoc committee thing again?
No, it's not that, it's, they have some new ideas for the site, but really it's to go over with them, and make sure everybody is on the same page in regards to, you know, the development agreement applying versus NDOT applying versus the base
To
zoning
that,
applying.
to that point, this evening, just before the meeting, we received a letter summarizing the opinion from Attorney Whitten. I know you haven't had a chance to read it, and probably other members of the board haven't either, but I would like to basically formally vote eventually to accept Attorney Whitten's position as the official position of the town of Maynard and the position of the Board of Selectmen going forward on the matter relative to the, how Maynard will approach our position on the development agreement at that particular location. I think it's important to go forward unified, and I think it's important to utilize the expertise that he has provided to us and utilize and leverage the strength that he gives us as a result of his opinion, which we would be really throwing away the leverage the town has if we did not accept it as our official position.
Yeah, I see. It's a long letter. Yeah, I kind of thought that was our position based on your previous meeting.
But I want to make it officially our position.
Yeah, I got you.
Where, because boards change and everything else, and, you know, a future board could obviously take another position on it, but
No, is it, it's a legal position.
it's the yeah, it should be our,
If it's a legal position, that's the legal position.
but we should codify that.
It's the
In my-
interpretation of the law. I think another lawyer could come down at a different point.
But our lawyer's better, so.
Yeah.
But I
I
believe
got
we
you.
should codify it and
All
make
right.
it.
Well, good. Another thing for next meeting.
Legal opinion, yeah.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, you got that today. I just received it today, so I sent it out. Didn't anticipate that you would have been able to read it by now.
Huh.
We had drafts put over the weekend, but it wasn't in that precise form until sometime earlier today.
Yeah, you don't want to print it till it's ready. Okay. That's all I got for chair report. Old new business, Tim?
Yes, and CPC is having their public hearing tomorrow, also the final vote to decide which projects will be funded, which leads me to a question for Kevin. Superintendent Girardi's plan for the Fowler Playground, estimated total of 116 grand for this playground, which is a big one. He says he says other supporting funding is 16 grand that was signed on by you. My question is, where does this money come from?
Prior article for playgrounds,
Left over or dedicated?
left off. Playground money.
From where exactly?
Town meeting.
Rio and Coolidge, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you did answer the traffic study one from earlier. He's got that written down.
Yeah, we've had discussions around that, and he was hoping to ask for free cash use for that project.
Because that's gonna ultimately decide where the Green Meadow one
Right.
will get built. But I don't see that happening in the near future with this.
Sounded like there was a couple of competing, from what I understand, competing applications. His priority was for the funding of the Fowler School playground.
Right, they did submit a joint, which is what I have in front of me. So they wanna get 50 grand for a Green Meadow plan
Okay.
/ fencing, wherever it goes. And then 116 for the Fowler to be completed. Now, whether we're able to fund both, we'll find out tomorrow. So,
Are we having representative at the public hearing for our projects? Or are they gonna make the short list?
I haven't heard from anybody. I know Linda was in conversation with John about the rail trail requests
There haven't been many questions regarding those.
Yeah,
And
and I
the
think the
cabinet.
other one, we had, early on, had a couple of questions that we followed up with, but, they seem to be okay with them. Just a matter of what money's available.
Right.
But since it's a public hearing, you know, is there somebody who will be able to explain it well enough for a question that comes from the public? Or are they gonna say, well, I don't know, the person who advocated it's not here?
We'll find out.
Okay.
I mean, John's gonna be there for conservation. I'll be there if you need me to say anything.
But Tim's not on the committee anymore, right, so. he can
No.
speak.
That's fine, as long as you can
Reminds me, I
talk,
do need to
as
submit
long
my
as you can
letter.
talk to our proposals.
Is the other proposal display?
I've gone
Yeah.
through them, and I know the scope. Andrew has talked about them as well at meetings, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're there and you can sell it, that's fine. Answer questions and sell it, that's all right.
But yeah, that's what's going on with that. Glad that question was answered.
Okay, anything else? Old, new?
Nope.
Chris?
Oh, I was gonna ask about the liquor license. You already covered that. But I do have a question, and knowing that every town is in the same position, is there an intention or a plan in place to, at least along the entryway to the main roads in town, to improve sight lines and the width of the corners that do the snow?
Yeah, they started doing some of it today.
Just so when, you know, you're in town, you can answer the questions that people think that, I guess we're in charge of snow removal too.
I'd ask him to.
You got the snowblower.
Ask him to drive to Boston, and then get back to me. No,
Well,
get
it's,
the-
yeah, I
where
mean,
the roads are.
it's-
No, I mean, yeah, it's an
It's the same,
ongoing
it's the
effort.
same everywhere, but it's just
Yeah.
a question that, I don't know, can't speak for anybody else sitting here, but it's been a question that a few people ask, when are they gonna fix the, you know, and it's,
We're doing snow removal townwide starting this afternoon. We've continued to ask folks to take their cars off of the roads, not park them on the streets. Some of the areas that they're doing is over the presidential, which are actually very narrow.
right.
Looking at trying to widen up some of those, and that's an ongoing effort. And they were going to be working at that this afternoon. Yeah.
Dozens of phone calls.
Yeah, I know. I can't imagine, it's just, you know. It is what it is, everyone's in the same position, so it's a question that.
Yeah, I know, it's, I
I've
mean.
heard a few times over the past couple of days from people that apparently, you know,
Residing in another community, we're in great shape.
No, I agree, I've
Is
been,
that, I mean, we're in no better where I live, and in fact, from what I can tell, worse off, with a bigger crew. It's tough, it's like you said, every community's battling with it, but they are continuing to address.
where are we putting it?
Most of it goes up to Pine Street.
Fox Hill.
Bose Mountain? Keep
A lot of
going.
it goes to Pine Hill, over to Pine Street, by the wastewater treatment plant, that
Right.
big open area there. We have not resorted to seeking a waiver to dump in the river. That places to go right
That would be interesting.
I'd be afraid we'd create a beaver dam, and the next thing you know.
Flood the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not creating a beaver dam, it's damaging a beaver dam would be more of a problem.
now. Correct.
Great mess.
Try to breach that.
All right, anything, old, new, David?
Yeah, can you, and this is a serious thing, to that point, I think the snow removal in Maynard, to your point, has been remarkable, given the size of the staff we've got. But can you mention to Chris, tomorrow, literally Cutting Drive is at one point because of a, snow drift?
It's on my list.
Okay, because it's down to one lane that you
Yeah.
have to go around, and it's
I meet with Chris on Wednesdays at 9:30, and that's on my.
at the top of the hill, not,
Yeah.
up the street from me, but it's
Right.
not good.
There was an issue.
I heard about that late this afternoon. I know they went out and
Do some extra sanding and salting.
sanded and
I
salted.
thought the hill was fine. This is up at the top of the hill, right beyond Mary Bramley's house, where it drifted, and it looks like a plow has never come through again. It's down to, it's one lane with your car goes into the ruts like you're in a car wash,
Yeah.
and you have to go through, and if you try to go to the right to allow another car to pass, it's probably about 7, 8,
Were you
10
home
inches.
before you came here?
Hmm?
Have you been home?
Yes,
Okay.
it was there
So it hasn't
when I left at
addressed
6,
then.
at 6:15.
Must have just salted then. I'll talk to him tomorrow.
We had someone from Cutting who called today because they were stuck on the hill.
Oh,
They couldn't get any traction or whatever.
yeah, I thought, you know, I think they've done a great job in our neighborhood, especially with the hill, but anyway, that's it for that point. The,
I
one
just
comment,
wanted- so, Kevin, when you get your list, how do you get your list? Do the police tell you? Of, you know, here's a bad corner, here's a too narrow street?
Yeah, they'll put together reports from, mostly through dispatch. They get called in, but they're constantly driving.
All right, I mean,
Roads, too.
they must know which are the super bad corners and stuff they're scared to pull out of. But, okay.
this probably is
Fair
a,
to say they're all bad right now.
this probably is
Yeah,
something that can be referred to, I know it's private property and everything else can be referred to the fire department to make sure they don't have a problem, but, and I realize it's a brick building, 129 Parker Street property, if there was ever any type of an emergency back at the building, there's no access, and there's now 10 feet of snow between Parker Street and the building back there. There would be no access, unless I guess they could come in from the backside to Field Street, but there is, there's no way to get to that building. I guess they could go to high school too, but, and I don't know if that's the responsibility of the property owner or whatever, given that it's private property, but it is
Okay.
scary should anything go on in that building. There would be zero access. And the last point is something,
PK2 building,
excuse me?
the PK2 building.
Yeah,
Because the electrical substation's all,
it's all, I know it's gone, and I know there's no gas, and I know there's no water, at least that's my understanding.
correct.
So there's probably not gonna be an issue, but
Right.
I'm just concerned, you know,
Okay.
even if a kid decides to go back there and illegally enter onto the property and suddenly he or she has broken their leg, there's no way for the police or fire to get back there. Zero.
Is that building condemned?
No.
I have a big X on it or anything?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's just closed.
Yeah, it's just closed. Anyway, the last thing is, I remember several years ago, we were told that on a regular basis, we assess our professional contract agreements with lawyers, our town council contract, and at the time, we had a contract with people who were doing audits in the building and everything else, and that we periodically review those. When are we up for our next review? For the board to assess or to bring, or for you to bring to us, for example, our legal contract with our current council?
You stole my question, because you had reminded me earlier, because about the OPED review, you're like, well, you know, it might be time for another set of eyes. And it's like, yeah, I mean, we periodically renew all the
Auditors.
professional contracts. But, yeah, I don't know, I mean, I don't know, is it a schedule?
No.
Should it be?
Well, those ones are driven by outside sources that dictate your annual audit and things like that. I mean, I guess there's really, you know, there's always a review, but when it comes to,
I mean, we usually switch auditors every once in a while, and a few others, but.
That's the point. I don't
How many of those do we have?
what?
Professional contracts like that?
Excuse me. We have an engineering firm,
Yeah.
Health administrator?
health administrator, which has been here since 1984. It's usually those money ones that are driven under other standard accounting requirements and things like that, that they actually alternate. Unless there's a problem with a consultant, typically don't change. I mean, most communities have town council for 30 years. I mean, unless there's a need to change it. So I guess, I mean, it's ongoing, to answer the question. Good accounting standards is, you know, it's good practice to, you know, when you're dealing with audits and things like that, to change them, but.
Can you get us a list of the contracts and how old they are? I mean, 1984, that's pretty good. I'm just
Yeah,
curious,
it's
I have
at
no
least
idea,
that.
actually.
It's been
That might be a big
since the
list, huh?
80s. No, it's not too bad.
Be interesting to look at.
And then my last point sort of goes back to the beginning of the meeting. I strongly encourage the board to insist on a component of affordable housing for that development at 129 Acton Street. You look up here, we had the wisdom to put our development principles up there, and number 5, I believe, is the call for us to expand our housing opportunities specifically for affordable purposes. And to ignore that, we should be in a consistent pattern with every development that goes into this community should have an affordable component to it, with few exceptions, for any number of reasons. But as I said earlier, most importantly, because it's the right thing to do.
All right, and actually, yeah, that reminded me, we're gonna have to talk about that next meeting anyways. To see what our comments are that we want to bring to the planning board. Okay.
That's it.
That's what we got. We got an executive session, so time to close up house. And we will not reconvene after the executive session. And I need to find an executive session paper. I've got the Constitution of the U.S., but I don't have a Constitution.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
I think okay, you want affordable, and what did they say? They don't want it, but there's no agreement. But what did they say as far as?
They said that they do not have it planned as part of their...
Not planned, okay,
as
because
part of their